So today we are with Hayes Hunter, Star Wars CCG World Champion, playing the game for a very long time, and we will get into that in our conversation. So Hayes, thank you so much for being today with us.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So kind of like I mentioned to you kind of the previous interview, since we have Andy's Premier Death Star 2 tournament, I kind of wanted to end there and have some deck text discussion there. So I want to kind of start with today and then kind of go backwards in time a little bit. So Star Wars CCG 2025, how do you feel about the game? Is it still fun, interesting, things you like, don't like? How do you feel about it?
Absolutely, yeah. It's definitely a lot of fun. I know I try to make it out to a couple tournaments every year, and really the driving force for me at this point is the community. But I mean, the game is still untouchable. I've dabbled in other games over the years, and I just kind of get bored with them. Star Wars CCG is very much an unsolvable puzzle, and the challenge it presents, the mechanics. I mean, it just still stands out above the rest. And playing a dead CCG, not to be demonstrative, it's cheaper, right? So you don't
Sure.
have to keep buying several $100s worth of product every couple of months to stay competitive. But really, it's the community, very very tight knit community. Everyone at this point is a decent person. A lot of the jerks and stuff have left, so it's I always joke with people who don't know our community. It's like going to a high school or college reunion every couple months, and the difference being is that you really really like and appreciate everyone that's there. So but no, the game itself, it's interesting. It's been about 10 years since the last reset, so that Jenga tower at this point is getting very high. It's a little complex. There's lots of references, and this card does this and whatever. I don't mind so much that design and the advocates that sort of are guiding our game have gone this route, because it has stymied another reset. Lots of little small surgical erratas. As soon as the problem is identified, sort of nipping in the bud so it doesn't grow to something unwieldy. So it's definitely a tack to take. I'm going to go with the flow no matter what. But I would love for things to sort of return to a more elegant time. That right now in the game it's very fast. There's no early game, which is something you actually really get a lot of in the retro environment. Is there's time to develop
Yes.
a strategy. You could be playing something that's not typical, and there's lots of opportunity to find the cards you need and build something unique. Whereas today in the game in modern, it's very fast. If you're not activating 12 or 13 on your second turn, if you aren't mid game on turn two, you're doing it wrong. So I'd like to see
Interesting.
things slow down a little bit, but regardless.
It's interesting because Johnny Chu made a similar comment. He said, like, the early game required skill, and he kind of missed that kind of early game a little bit. And would you say that as far as deck construction, because there's a lot of helper cards, right? I think like Carbon Chamber Testing has some new cards where you can basically, teleport, basically Han or whoever's in Carbonite to the audience chamber. Does that mean that you're limited because you have to use the helper cards to kind of skip the early game, or how would you describe it?
Um, I mean, it's a slippery slope, right? I mean, before there was, just starting locations and then starting interrupts and then, you know, objectives and then bigger starting interrupts. It's where does that, at a certain point, it gets a little bit out of control. Things start interacting with each other in unintended ways. The deck that I played at Worlds, all it did was vomit a whole bunch of locations on the table very quickly, which, that is something that existed ages ago. Drop and drain effectively is what it was. But, back in the day, you had to like at least draw for a turn to draw up into all these locations, and even then you weren't guaranteed to get them. The way that the decks now can do 17 prescribed things on turn 1, 2, it's like you're playing chess, but everybody is playing from the same opening move playbook, right? Everything is scripted like that, and being nonlinear and being able to sort of do your own thing. It's much harder to do because the efficiency of doing the prescribed thing is just so much greater. I mean, you can think back to when mob points came out, right? Everybody did mob points because it was always the best, most efficient activation. So as long as something new and more efficient comes along, people are always going to settle on that, land on that, because Star Wars is a game of resources. So why would you not want to be the most efficient? I think you could get away with being a little more creative when things weren't so up tempo as they are today.
Now that makes sense, and you're right about mob points. Yeah, it's better than staging areas by margin, just because the two force, well, two force is the same, but getting planet. And you're right, it's very hard not to use a docking bay, and so everyone used them. And then I guess what Tatooine and other future sets try to nip that a little bit. The defensive shield try to nip that some, but it sounds like that's kind of been reversed in the modern era, you'd say, because now effectively in some ways.
Yeah, I mean, it's just there's different methods of resource generation now, and design has been very deliberate in trying to make sure that promoting a sort of 2-to-1 ratio. So even though everybody is getting a ton of icons, they're also giving a lot of icons. At a very high level, you're saying, well, this is great. Everybody has all the resources they need to play the game. But that's different when everybody has like a surplus of resources. It changes how you play the game. When activation numbers are lower, you can throw out your lone Vader or whatever playing hunt down and not be afraid that you're going to lose the game because they're activating 16 force. That means Luke, Lando, Obi, Gift of the Mentor. Do you have the Gek, right? Like the stakes are higher is maybe the wrong way to phrase this, but I mean, in the olden days, I mean, we didn't even play Kujix. We're like, oh, you beat me down for 10? Okay, I'll beat you down for 12 next turn. Like, no big deal, like it was just the way of things. But yeah, it's more about keeping your permanence on the table today, keeping board state up, not paying for battle plan, battle order. The game is changed, certainly.
Okay, sure. So you mentioned your 2023 deck a little bit. So yeah, let's go back in time. So obviously, we had COVID, and then we had like through 2024. 2020 had a virtual world championship. Were you kind of 2020, 2021 all the way through 2024? Were you at all these events?
Yeah. I mean, I want to say, I mean, I played from like Hoth till whenever Freedom Con, 2002, Dragon Con, I think it was.
Yeah.
And then I took a long break. I actually came back for a retro tournament in 2009.
Yeah.
And then I took a break. And I got into Open, and then we did the reset. And then I took a break. And yeah, I've been pretty much consistent, going to at least a tournament every year since like 2017 or 2018. But yeah,
Nice.
COVID was a thing. We've never seen so much volunteer, like the volunteering efforts skyrocketed across the board because everyone had free time. I was involved in like play testing or something at that point, but no, it also gave everybody a lot of perspective, just how special what we have is. People really, I think, I mean, we all do to some point, to some degree, take for granted this community. But being locked down during COVID, not being able to see everyone came out of COVID charging, raring to go, wanting to see everybody again. So yeah, I mean, I've done at least 2 or 3 tournaments every year since then, and World was really fantastic. It was nice to get that one. I go to Gen Con and play other games, and I think I mentioned this in some other interview or whatever, but I was at Gen Con and I said to myself, well, at Gen Con in a final single elimination tournament, and my opponent, who I was friendly with, was like, "Hey, do you want to concede and let me go on and play this thing and whatever?" And I'm like, "Well, I just reflected and I'm like, this guy really wants to win this tournament for this other game," and I'm like, "I don't care. So yes, go ahead." And it made him happy, and he went on and won the tournament, whatever. And that night or whatever, hanging out with people, I said, in that moment, I was reflecting. I'm like, the one thing that I really like, a bucket list item is like, I just need to win the Star Wars Worlds. I've been playing this game for whatever 25 years,
Long time.
but something insane like that, longer. Um, so yeah, it was very meaningful for me to finally get that one world championship off my back. So, but
Nice. So did you get so what did you get for winning? Did you get a swag? Did you get a trophy? Do you have that still, or how did that go?
yeah, it's a big obelisk thing, you
Okay.
know.
Okay.
I mean, it's not about the trophy or whatever.
Sure. Sure.
It's a lot of work to play and to you know be successful at this game consistently. I'm on Team Five. That's our collective brain trust that comes up with decks and does all our testing and whatever. And we put a lot of work in, and we're pretty good. We're very organized. We share information. So I said earlier that Star Wars is a game of resources. It's also a game of information, which technically is a resource. Just being on top of the meta and analyzing everything and getting, you know, differing opinions makes us stronger type of thing. So lots of support from my team five.
Nice. All right. Is this a publicly known team, or is this a secret team,
Oh,
or
yeah. Everybody
okay.
knows my team. Yep.
All right. All right, cool. And how would this be different, Team Five today versus like in the past? Because I know Decipher had like regionals, right? You were like Alderaan or your core or whatever. Like where were you back in the day? Do you know or can you
I
tell?
was Kashik. So I grew up with, well, my brother, Eric Hunter. But like many people that still play today, um, you know, um, Mike Pistone, I mean, everyone knows Justin Desai, Steve Baroni, Mike Gem, they were all like the local players at our tournaments. We actually would go up to Albany and the Albany guys would come down pretty frequently. So, the Twigs, Sokol, Chew, they were no strangers to us. And, we'd go down to like, Coruscant for, Ramapo and whatever. So like that whole Northeast corridor, it's really remarkable how many people are still playing today. And we were just in Morristown, New Jersey, whatever, 2-3 weeks ago, and I was looking at my props and slops list from DecipherCon 2000, and of the list, I mean, this was like just me as a 16-year-old or however old, 17-year-old, just sort of like naming names to name names, and I looked at the list and I'm like, there were 5 people that I was at Worlds at in 2000, also playing Star Wars in Morristown, New Jersey 3 weeks ago. And then there was like another like 20 of them that, I've seen in the last, I don't know, 1 or 2 years or something. It's really, again, it's really remarkable. The community is everything here. I forget your question.
No. I was just asking what the difference between what was it like kind of with your teams back then. So yeah, you're in Kashyyyk. So you mentioned Jemmy and I forgot a couple other names there. Were they like you're similar to Team Five nowadays, or is it less
No,
organized,
no,
or
no,
how
no.
was that for
So my brother and I were kind of the ones that always won all the tournaments. So it was us against them. Um, I mean, the Team Five group. Actually, it's really funny. Tom Kelly is also from Connecticut. Stephen Salucci, also from Boston. He was one of the local players. Ross Latower was another player that was local. Part of the reason I joined Team Five is because one weekend I wanted to hang out with those guys, and they would just happen to be on the team. And then later on I was kind of invited to the team. But yeah, a lot of the players that are on Team Five were actually just locals from Kashyyyk from 20 years ago. So it's a small world type thing. I don't know. And everybody knows everybody in this community at this point. But yeah, the big difference is teams before were very dominated by geography, and today with the internet and all that crazy stuff, you can be teammates with whoever you want to. So we're just a fell in. It was just sort of the way it is, and you know, the team originated as like a play testing pod or something. I don't know. I wasn't there. This was like back in 2016, 2017. I think I joined in 2017 or 2018. Regardless, it's just we're a bunch of guys that get along really well, and no assholes in the group except for me. But yeah, no, it's just get along. It's fun.
Right. Okay, so all right, so yeah, so you basically you took a break since 2002. You played a little bit. You said I know that we had the World 2000 tournament 2009, and then but you played a little bit of Open for how long? And before you started again 2017, or was it just 2017
Yeah, I
pretty
mean,
much?
it was like, I mean, I was off the game from that basically 2002. I think it was 2002, 2003 Dragon Con. I forget which year it was. It was the worlds with I remember there was like a virtual Star Destroyer deck. I don't know. Anyway, that was 2002 or 2003. 2009, I was only back for the one tournament, and then I think I came back in like 2011. So I mean, the Open experience then was much different because the power creep was kind of insane. I mean, that's sort of what prompted the reset at that time. I feel like attendance was really suffering at live events. You know, there was tournaments that where you'd expect to see 30 or 40 people and they got 8 or something like that. Like, and I mean, the factors that contributed to that reset, I mean, it's a different time. Again, it was more than 10 years ago. I think the philosophy of design has changed. I think that things are never going to get that bad again because design tries to mitigate and the competitive balance team tries to mitigate things. But at that point, it was dark times because the philosophy was, we're not going to errata things. We're just going to make new cards to fix stuff. And that was a very sort of stubborn, closed-minded way to do it, and it just became a problem. Today, people have more discretionary income. Most of us, people again appreciate the community more because they realize how precious it is. And then of course, GEMP is huge, right? Like, I mean, that was the sheer timing of it, the fact that it came out before COVID. I mean, that is like miraculous, really. We are super, 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 super fortunate to have GEMP because I think without it, the game would be dead. You know, certainly, you know, just being able to connect people to play the game on a reasonable platform. I mean, I love Holotable. Holotable's great, but I mean, it's not. There's a barrier of entry there that GEMP takes away. So I mean, we are super fortunate. Like I think we pretty much owe Troy everything for the game being able to continue at this point. So numerous factors, difference between then and now, but the reset, the pre-reset era was legitimately crazy. It felt very broken. It felt to me even faster and a little more chaotic and unbalanced. And I mean, I don't want to imply that it is those things now today. It was far more up the power creep and power level scale at that time, and that's why another reset was kind of warranted back then. So
No, that's a fair statement. Makes sense. So is this kind of did you feel like the power creep in 2002? Do you think that kind of led to you kind of like, depart from Star Wars for a while? And
well, no, I think my initial departure was more real life oriented. You know, met a girl, becoming an adult, the other things took priority. But I mean, to your point about 2002 power creep, I mean, I have a reset 2.0 document waiting in the wings. I'm not beating down any doors to make it happen like last time. But the number one thing is everybody I think recognizes that Decipher's last couple sets were very much a cash grab because they knew
sure.
what was happening, and they were just trying to make their dollars. Which it's a business. I'm not going to fault them for that, but there's a huge stark difference between designing a product, a passion project where dollars and cents isn't ultimately the important thing versus, doing something for profit. I mean, that's part of why I think the game has continued for so long is, thanks to Scott and the advocates and the community as a whole. Nobody's here trying to get rich. Everyone just wants a really good product, a really good game, and to make everyone, well, as many people as possible happy. So Decipher clearly in those last moments just said, show us the money, and the power creep level that Reflections 3 put into the game was terrible. So if you're ever going to reset the game again, you need to like address that up front. You need to have something that makes it. Lando's Screaming Lando today is like an appropriate meta level card. And we're talking about a card that came out 20 years ago. We finally reached that level on the power creep curve. So, there's things that can be done. You can fix a lot of these Decipher create. I mean, honestly, most of the cards that we have issues with are old Decipher cards from like Coruscant and stuff. I'm just thinking in terms of what comes through on the CBT, the competitive balance team discussion, and it's Decipher created a lot of issues. I mean, it's not like they're certainly you can look back at their track record. We should not keep them, up there like some sacred cow, right? Like you look at Asteroid Sanctuary, you look at numbers, you look at all sorts of, Shot in the Dark. I mean, there's so many fun, stupid, broken things that you could do with their cards. It was the Wild West of 90s card games, right? I mean, who can blame them? But they definitely weren't perfect. There's room for improvement.
No, they were not, and you're absolutely right about they a lot. I mean, I give them credit for experimenting, willing to do new mechanics, and I give them credit for trying to be different than Magic and trying not to have a ban list. But I think I hear very similar things. Sokol complained about Screaming Lando too. This is a ridiculous card, and Johnny Chu also thinks we should have a reset again at 2.0 as well. He had a similar feeling to you as well. I'm not hearing anyone saying they love Reflections 3 maintenance cards. It seems that is the I'm not seeing anyone defend them. No defenders.
You wanted to win tournaments, you had to buy those cards to be competitive. So be it.
Yeah.
That's how you make. It's just the worst version, right? I mean, remember going from Farm Boy Luke to Commander Luke? It was a big deal going from 3 to 4 power. Like that mattered or something. And this is just 10 times worse. But yeah. It was a crazy era. When you think back, it's the 90s. I mean, thank goodness Decipher managed to pair some extremely good mechanics with a great IP, right? I don't know that any of us would still be doing this if it was, I don't know, Power Rangers CCG or something, right? Like I don't think that has the same allure. Granted, I'm biased. We're all in our 40s and 50s now, so it's like we're of a certain age where Star Wars is but it's just every set they've produced a new mechanic. Sometimes they did great, sometimes they failed, but now we have the gift of hindsight, and we have total control. So it begs the question: if we can fix it, why don't we fix it, right? So and I think that design has been more liberal in that regard.
Yeah, I think, and Sokol made a comment that he would love to see banning cards. He would love to see cards banned. Do you think that maybe a reset 2.0 or some other future would say, you know what, we are going to ban numbers, we are going to ban Screaming Lando, we're just
yeah. So the thing that we were always dancing around was trying to preserve Decipher's original tenets, which is we're never going to ban a card. But you yourself just said it, right? They were doing it to be the antithesis of Magic, who did have a ban list. Decipher was like, well, some of their customers get unhappy because they can't use the card that they opened out of a pack. Well, we're going to make sure we get that customer by saying that that'll never happen to them. Well, yes, sure, what you're saying is not untrue, but when you errata something so severely that it's unplayable, you might as well just ban it, right? So we have actually a more broad arsenal, right, than what was available 10, 20 years ago. This has been a gradual thing, but I've alluded to the fact that design is more willing and open to change things, to errata things on the fly, fix things initially. So, I think it's just, we definitely want to try to preserve the original Decipher stuff as much as possible. But I think if you look at other games, just in the last 30 years, we have hindsight on our side now. We know what's right, right? We can just make it easy. Occam's razor, fix the problems. That means ban the card. So be it. We had discussion about having a super shield that just is like literally a checklist of these cards are all canceled. Like it's like a checklist. Boom, it comes out. Everybody knows this card exists. So why would anyone play anything of the 17 cards that are listed on it or whatever and there's room to add more cards if the need arises, right? We can literally make our own cards. So we can fix any problem. It just takes time. It just takes volunteer effort. And, as we do age, time is a very valuable resource. So making things move and happen can be a challenge sometimes.
Sure, makes sense. Okay, so let's go back to the Decipher era. Let's go like to 2021. So Worlds 2000 happened. We'll talk about that later. So that ended
2021, 2001.
2000. Worlds 2000 happened. That was the PDS2 one. That was when they released
Okay, yeah.
they released Java's Palace Seal Deck at the same time. It wasn't legal for the tournament.
Yep.
But then 2001 happened. 2001 is where we had the first kind of Reflections 2, then Tatooine, then et cetera, all the way through Thief Palace. So you were playing during this time. You experienced. So what was it like in 2001? Kind of because it ended up with Worlds. Were you at Worlds 2001, or I guess they got canceled partially-ish, but they still had the tournament. I don't know the details.
I mean, I was I was there in 2000 at Worlds. 2001 was Freedom Con, and there was the whole obviously the it was canceled and uncanceled because of 9/11. And then 2002 was DecipherCon, the last DecipherCon, and I forget. I guess they hosted that in Florida or whatever. That's when Watto. I mean, I was there through all of those events, and what is your specific question?
I guess what was it like? As because Phantom Menace came out in 1999, right? There was a small hint on the desert from Special Edition saying may not deploy to Naboo, right? That was like the only reference to Episode 1 I'm aware of from Special Edition. So there's a lot of hype. Obviously, we have some people today that don't like the prequels, right? I don't know where you felt. How did you feel about having Tatooine come on? That kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think back then when you're just talking about Star Wars content in general, I was a kid. I mean, in 2000, I was 16 turning 17. So I knew Phantom Menace came out. I remember going to see it with my 2 card playing buddies and my brother. Half day at school, go watch a movie. Cool. I mean, I did not have good or strong objective standards at that age. So I didn't really care one way or the other. It was just new Star Wars content. Looking back on things, I don't really engage in any of the new Star Wars content that comes out today. So I can understand why some people have revulsion for the Episode 1 stuff. But that stuff doesn't bother me. It was introduced in my formative years. I'm not offended, whatever. This new stuff, I'm like, there's too much content for me to keep up with. I'm just like, I don't know who this. I'm playing with this character in my deck, and I'm like, I think they're from Star. I don't know where any of these, but it's fine. I am not like some purist who I love Star Wars, yes, but it's really the OG trilogy and reading all those bounty hunter books and all that stuff. I mean that's I'm stuck in that era, and the new stuff I can do without or whatever. But Worlds 2000 was one of my most memorable tournaments for sure. You are correct. That is where I met Sokol. He and TJ Holman and I were all minors. We were not 18. And so Decipher, no, that's incorrect. That was 98. Sorry. the years blur together.
Well, we can talk about 98. No, because So Cool did tell me his 98 stories. He said his mom had to come bring him there. Now, I know you met him in 2000, but you were there at 98 too? Or
Yeah,
what?
98 is when we met. So you threw me off. Yeah, no, we definitely met in 98. The three of us, all underage in 98, all got world's buys. And because we were minors, Decipher had to like pay for us and a guardian. So, yes, Sokol's mom, my whole family went because my brother also played, and my parents thought it would be mean to, ship off one of their boys and not the other when we both played the same game. Um, so my whole family took that Virginia Beach, I guess it was Norfolk. Nope, it was Virginia Beach,
Oh,
98.
nice. Wow.
That's my
Nice.
very, very abused coaster. Um, but yeah, we all met like connecting in Philadelphia, just on the way down to Virginia. 2000 was like, and I also was not very good at 98. Like that was, I don't
All
want to say fluky, but
Okay, well, let's start 98. Let's try to go chronological now. Let's stick to 98 because obviously, on the internet, I heard the stories and I think like one of the designers said there's some controversy there. So, Sokol, I guess he said he got mailed some of the special edition card. That happened for you too, or how did that go?
yeah. Everybody that qualified, because it was going to be the first tournament for special edition. Everybody that qualified got like a booster box or two, and then a box of starters. And I mean, everyone was on their own to open the packs and try to figure out with their local play groups what to play or whatever. And again, I was like legitimately terrible. Like I think my skills are fine. I was not. Um, I wasn't attuned to the meta or anything. Like I didn't have main characters. Like I was like whatever, a 14-year-old kid in 1998, right? My allowance is like $5 a week, so I didn't have all the cards. Um, I the tournament I won was like asteroids and TIE Scouts. Like it was like bad.
Gotcha.
Um, but no, so everybody that had competitive playing partners and friends figured out that operatives was the thing. So like I definitely remember Friday night before that 98 Worlds, everybody that was in the know was just literally knocking on every hotel room that they possibly could. And they're like, hey, look, I need operatives. I'll give you all of my core lag operatives if you give me all of your Iradu operatives, or whatever the case was, right? Everybody just was trying to get 20 copies of an operative for both sides. And that was not me. I was blissfully asleep, you know, with my hidden base, and I don't even remember what I played for dark. Not I was not on the right wavelength for that tournament. But it was still a really fun experience. I mean, it was a much smaller, more intimate event. We got to do like the first EPP sealed deck or whatever. I mean, it was fun, but it opened up my eyes to like, oh wow, these guys are like really good, and like watching them interact and like talk meta stuff. Like I just, I was like a kid who just played with my brother on our kitchen table. Like I was unaware of like this greater community and so on. So it was an eye-opening experience. It really motivated me because I was, never like, I mean, I was always like a 4-2 player. So to go and get my butt handed to me at that tournament was like very, very motivating for me. So after that, EPPs made mains affordable. That's sort of when my trajectory took off. So yeah, did Gen Con and did other tournaments like that, and then fast forward to 2000. I mean, that was obviously when Matt won. Um, that was, I think that was like my first big tournament that I flew to on my own. So it was, me, and there was other people from the Kashik region there. I wasn't there, by myself, but I was unsupervised from parental experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was, I mean, that was one of the largest, most successful tournaments that I think Decipher ever hosted. I mean, that is literally what the Premiere through Death Star 2 format is that's in GEMP, that is like, I want to say it's number 2, right? Like it is next to Open, it is the most common format, is it not?
No, I think so. From a games you see standpoint, I mean, Premier Reflections 2, you see that maybe that's third ish. Of course,
Mm-hmm.
we had Premier Cloud City. We had some other things people like, but yes, I mean, you don't see many Premier New Hope games other than if there's like a tournament there. But I agree. I think Premier Death Star 2, second most popular behind Open. That seems very true for GEMP.
I mean, I literally still have somewhere around here the retro decks assembled. Like the when you go into GIMP and you can see the drop down. We talked about the Throne Remain Nudge deck and then the Trooper ROPS. Like I think a couple of years ago, I was in the finals with Bastion. It was a retro tournament, and that's what I played then. I still have those decks built because to me, they're not perfect. They're not like the best decks in the format, but I love playing those two against each other because of the chess match that matchup in particular presents. Um, Amusingly, I'm going to be traveling to the UK for the Naboo Regional Tournament next month. And when I was there in whatever last time in Europe, a guy named Mike Josem reached out to me. And I know who this is. He is in 2000 at the DecipherCon in 2000. He was from Australia. This is not to be confused with Justin Pates. This is Mike Joes, Jos or Joz, Josem. But anyway, he's an Australian player in 2000, and like whatever, I remember his name. He remembers my name. Decktech was a thing, and so we were at Worlds in Germany, and like he just emailed me out of the blue, and like we connected, and so like I reached out to him like, hey, I'm gonna be in your neck of the woods. Do you want to hang out? He's like, yes, and we get on a WhatsApp call, and he's like, do you remember? You know, I think you took me to some pancake place in Florida, and I'm like, International House of Pancakes. He goes, yeah, that sounds about right. I'm like, he's like, yeah, man, and the I couldn't understand why the maple syrup it tasted like strawberries. I'm like, yes, that was what you asked, and you know, but it's just me rambling here, right?
Oh, this is good. No, these are
Crazy
stories. These are great. You know.
that a guy that I was at IHOP with from Australia in the year 2000 now will be hanging out and giving us a mini tour of London in 2025. I mean, it's just small world type stuff that you know these happen. But now that event was sort of a pinnacle, I think, of the game. I mean, the ultra rares were there, but I think there's, and this is, you know, we're going to talk a little bit about the meta and stuff, but I feel like it's so crazy looking back to how small of a period of time that was. Because normally I think sets came out every 4 to 5 to 6 months back in the Cypher days, and having the injection of the JPSTD really split things. Like the meta before and after that was significant because of no escape. So when you look back, it's actually a very small, we're talking about a 3-month period of time because Death Star 2 came out sometime in the summer, July or August, I don't remember. And this tournament was in October, I believe. So we're talking about like a 3-month window effectively, but everybody remembers that time period. And then of course, JPSTD shifted things. So in my head, I'm very much like, back then, once new cards came out, there was no reason for you to revisit the old meta because it was irrelevant because you always played with all the new cards. So personally, I've never gone back and done a deep dive on that meta. I'm like, oh, these two good decks are good enough, the ROPS and the TRM. But now, like, it's so interesting watching other people play in that same format 20 years later because, like, people have continued to iterate. Like, I don't think people understood exactly how good Emperor Shuttle was back then. Obviously, X-Wing cannons were, like, much more popular, I think. But really, they weren't at that period. Like at that period, like people were still just doing Falcon and Tanip. I think that the X-Wing cannons probably they became more popular when Watch Your Step became a thing. Anyway, regardless, I'm fascinated watching people play the Premiere to Death Star 2 format today because they have explored that meta more deeply and found new strategies that we didn't back then because we only had 3 months and these people have had like what 20 years. So I am the nuance is there. Also, and I make this comment all the time. GAMP is like your comic book store, right? So back in the day, if you wanted to win your local tournament, you know, you knew the 12 or 20 people that showed up every Saturday for that local, and the way you got good was, and inflated your rating, was figuring out how to beat each of the 20 people. You're like, oh, these 10 are scrubs, I don't need to worry about them. These 10 are good. I know that these people have this tendency to play this or whatever. So it's fun because you would, for your local store, you'd be like sitting there before the tournament, hanging out with your friend. Your mom has dropped you off, and you see so and so shows up, and you're like, oh man, that guy, he always plays like 10 senses and blah blah blah. So you go and you throw in an extra grabber before the tournament starts, right? Based on who's shown up, you're like, okay, let me make this change. So it's really funny because to me, GEMP feels so much like that. Like I watch these games and I feel like I'm not trying to be mean when I say this, when I use this word, but it's like inbred testing, right? Everybody gets tunneled in on their own thing and you draw incorrect conclusions because you're just so focused on what you're always playing against here on GEMP. It warps your perspective for the broader environment or whatever. I think that it's really interesting to watch the Premiere through Death Star 2 games in particular, because you see how much stuff has changed. I find it fascinating. I'm not up to that level in that environment anymore, but I can see people's wheels are turning, and it's not a cakewalk. I can't just go and load up throne remains and expect to beat everybody. Everybody's gotten a lot better in that format for sure.
I agree, but of course, you look at the tournaments, today. But I think you had like Dr. Torch, Paul Feldman. I mean, he was there in 2000. I think you had like Joe Horby. He, how do we get in this mess? He was there in 2000. He plays Open too. So you still have a lot of players that still playing a lot that were back then, long term, as well as kind of some new people, whatever. And as far as meta, you're right. No, I think like the PDS2 decks from the past have a lot of Falcon. You don't have very much Home One. Home One is, I think, is a little more popular now than it was. I think people realize that it's more combo there. Do you remember what you played in Worlds 2000? What was it? A TRM and ROPS deck? It was the kind of the same you played in
No,
2009.
Throne Room, yes. Kyle Kraft and I were roommates. We played almost card for card the same Throne Room Nudge deck. I think we both lost to Martin Falk's Troopers because we were more accustomed to the American slower ATST build, not the Blitzkrieg German version that was with the Trooper assaults and full scale alert. And I totally fell in love with that deck. Like that was like one of my favorite losses ever. I just remember playing that game, and it was wonderful, wonderful loss. Projected telepathy, all this cool stuff. For Dark, I copied Matt Sokol's Beast deck. So I was running the Bring Him Before Me with I think it was like 7 senses and 3 altars, and the responsibility command, much anger in him, more rooms. You just turn 1, palp, draw, and you just assembled your combo, and you just outsack them and did your 4 direct damage through the combo, and that was the Dark deck. So they were both very good. I lost, I think, to Peter DeBazio, who finished first on the day one because he was playing no characters. He was playing X-Wings and speeders. I think that was my only loss that day. And the next day I went like 5-3. Martin Falk was one of the losses. I don't remember the second loss. And Paul Todd Feldman was my last loss because he won on time.
Yeah. I have the list. We can kind of go over it. I have the old Decipher list from that. But so day one was the Throne Room with Nudges, along with Bring Before Me, Responsibility Command, Much Anger and Combo. And day 2,
Mm-hmm.
was day 2 the same for you, or is you?
Yeah, I mean, the logic was if this worked fine before, why wouldn't work fine again? It was a huge tournament, so it's not like people were teching for us or whatever. So I'm 100% confident I played the same decks card for card.
Okay. Was there any danger back then? Because I think like Sokol said, like the players that were playing, they were like roped off. Like a bystander couldn't just like see like the hall of players a day 1, day 2.
That's for day 3.
Okay.
I mean, this was the old world where there was 3 days. Yeah, no. I mean, obviously, if you made the cut for day 3, it was a terrible system. But you played in a miniature Swiss tournament where differential mattered. So it was a very 4 games and then Swiss, and then you took the top 2 to play in the finals. It was a very poor format. They should have just done single limb match play. That would have been so much better, but they didn't. It's how they did things back then. So yeah, no, it was cordoned off, and they were just having their own tournament. I guess the idea was to prevent scouting. I guess that was why you would rope them off. I mean, obviously to give them space to play, so they wouldn't be, 20 people breathing down their necks or whatever. But yeah, they just had a very anticlimactic 12 or 16 person Swiss tournament, at the end of which, oh, here are the finalists, and then we got to watch it on the screen. But
Okay, and it was anticlimactic because you didn't know who was ahead. Because if you said it was like traditional lost tournament, you would know like, oh, these are the top 8, this is the top 4, and that you don't know
yeah,
until the end.
yeah, I mean, again, this was 25 years ago, right? So there was not a ton of your updates were them writing something on a whiteboard. That's how you learned what was happening in the tournament, or presumably, I mean, I think my brother mentioned following it online, but without streaming, and without being able to see a bracket, like it was just. I mean, somebody could have lost their first game by like just differential, all of it. It was just not. Again, we have the benefit of hindsight here. It just was not how you run the best way to run a competitive tournament. I mean, I'm not going to disagree with the results. I think Matt totally deserved it. The name of the game back then was playing something really, really weird and wonky on day 3, and Team Albany, tremendously creative deck builders. I mean, Chu and Kingery in particular. I mean, they put together the right package, and I mean, Matt's obviously he's such a great player. Like he still has it. Like it's when you're good at Star Wars, it's really hard to become not good at Star Wars. I'll put it that way. But no, I mean, it was just a tremendous event. All the shenanigans. It was so poorly run. I mean, I remember we started the first day like 5 hours late. We were there. The first round got paired at 1 p.m. when it was supposed to start at 8 or 9 a.m. and we didn't get done until 2 in the morning. It was. But we were younger. We had energy. We could survive such things. It was fun.
Okay, so you got on late. So it's poorly run. Yeah, because I think Chu said the same thing. They started late. I know day 1 they had a lot of eliminations. They checked your decks. So you passed it. You wrote accurately. We're not disqualified.
Apparently I did. Apparently I did. I
Okay.
have not subsequently. Fun story. I think this was Star Trek. One of my buddies was deck checking me at Star Trek, and he's like, "Hey, come here," and I'm like, "What?" He's like, "Dude, your deck list is wrong." I'm like, "Okay, I'll fix it." He's like, "No, it is wrong." He's like, "Your dilemma deck is literally like 30 cards that aren't here." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "Look at your list, look at this," and I'm like, "Oh, I guess I did switch the entire dilemma deck last night." He's like, "Yeah, why don't you fix this now?" I mean, the nobody wants to DQ somebody. It's just, I think, I'm sure Decipher at that time realized that they had a big. Decipher has always been weird, right? It was very cutthroat, not because of prize money, but it was cutthroat because everyone had to police themselves. I distinctly remember playing against Ray Bordier, and this was like my first Gen Con. I was, I think this was 2000. Yeah, because it was Brigham. Yeah, it was probably 2000. And I mean, I love Ray to death. I mean, he's a great guy. I sent his daughter when she was born a little stuffed animal, whatever. But like we're playing this game, and I was like, the naive new kid, and like we're playing and da da da. And I went, "Oh, you didn't lose to your Visage." He goes, "I forgot." And I'm like, "Okay, well, just remember next time." He's like, "Okay." And we're playing and da 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 da. And then sure enough, "Hey, you didn't lose the Visage again." He's like, "I forgot." I'm like, "All right, this is getting judged, da da da." And they're like, "Well, what phase are you in?" I'm like, "Well, he activated 3/4." And they're like, "Too late, you didn't catch it." So, da, 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 and then as soon as he flips, he's like, "Lose one of Visage." I'm like, I mean, you learn, you had to learn things the hard way. It was not easy. And I think that Decipher at some point realized that that was their policy, right? They didn't have active judging. It wasn't like Magic. They were trying to, again, distance themselves and be antithetical in that respect. But I think they at some point realized like, this is getting unruly. How can we be mean and make people take this more seriously or something? So somehow they decided that the best way to handle deck checks was to just black and white, yes or no. If it's not 100% correct, clearly we can't determine your intent, therefore you must be cheating. I mean, it was a terrible tack to take. That left a very sour taste in a lot of people's mouths because, I mean, we're talking about Johnny Chu here. I mean, anybody that knows him knows how an amazing human being he is. Um, Obviously, cheating was not his intent, and certainly he would have been in the top again, right? Like, I mean, Johnny Chu at Worlds equals top 8, right? Like that's just automatic. So, I mean, it's sad that it denied him that chance to win another world championship, but I don't know. I can't speak for Decipher in that regard.
When it came to day one, day two, you said like there was a concern about scouting. I mean, could people walk behind you, look at what you're playing, and give notes to their friends, or did that not happen? Like, when you playing your day one, day two games, did anyone
I
like
mean,
sneak at you or?
yeah, I mean, scouting is absolutely a thing that's happened. It's always happened since the dawn of time because there's no way to police it, right? So everybody just assumes that everybody is doing some level of scouting, right? Back then, after you finished your game or whatever, you'd go and if you were, I don't know, I mean, Team Albany, whoever, it doesn't matter what team you were on. If it was Clinton Stephen Lewis, if it was, you know, whoever, right? Everybody would be like, oh, I just played against so and so. They did da 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 da. Everybody likes to talk about the games they just played, but sometimes you go like, oh, and watch out, he has a copy of Lost in the Wilderness or something, right? Like, I mean, there was just always that level of information sharing. I think that's just there's no way to stop people from doing it really. So it's just always been a part of our game. I mean, at Worlds that I won, like, I was playing a shield busting deck, and Casey's first action was cold feet to play a shield. No other action had been taken, and that was his first action, which, he knew that I was playing shield busting. And am I upset about it? No, of course not. Like, I expect that whatever I'm playing in the first round of a tournament, people will know what I'm playing by the time I'm in the last round of the tournament. So it behooves you to play a deck that is good rather than a deck that is gimmicky, because you have to assume that people are going to figure out what the trick is to be able to beat it. So scouting has always been a thing. That's fine.
I guess I'm just curious because like this is like a 2000, you said like DecipherCon, one of the biggest events at the time, right? I mean, I would imagine obviously you were young, but if you're an older player, like would you not want to like have your buddies like go through the thing? I guess it's a Swiss event, it's a differential event. It's hard to know who's
Yeah, I
going to
mean,
be, but
yeah, I mean, well, the day one and day two were huge. Like I don't remember the specific numbers. It might have been 200 people on day one. I know it was more than 100 people on day two. Um, so, and again, I mean, how much benefit is it? Like, you're not gonna go finish your game and then start walking down the rows row by row to try to observe things. Like, that's not meaningful information. But I mean, if you're aware, if you and your buddy are out, having a smoke break or something after the round and you're talking, like, yeah, a little bit of information is going to be shared. But I mean, I don't think anyone, I mean, I don't find it to be malicious. I think it's just sort of the way of things. If people see what other people are playing, they state what they observed, and like, okay, that's a little more information for me or for whoever. Like, it's not, but I don't think that anyone is like, I mean, I don't know. I'm sure someone has done it, but I don't think people are. I don't think there was ever like a. How do I say this? I don't
organized
think that
attempt
at any
to.
point in the game somebody was going through with a pen and paper, walking past live tables, writing down things, and then like, it's like there's just levels of it. I don't know. I don't take it that seriously. I don't think it really impacts things too terribly much.
Sure. I mean, you'd also have to be able to capitalize this information, and you'd have to assume they didn't switch their decks. Yeah, Matt Sokol did switch his decks day one, day two. You didn't, obviously, so there's a gamble there, and of course you'd have to know who goes the next days. Get that. Any memories with Alex Tennant, Greedo 77, meeting him. How was that? British
Oh
guy?
yeah, yeah. I'm trying to get in touch with him. We were was gonna see him last time I was in Germany, but he got concussed. I don't know, car accident or something. I don't know. But yeah, no. Alex Tennant is. Most people are familiar with him as sort of the creator of Dark Surgeon, the six times Emperor Agents of Black
Yes.
Sundeck.
Yes.
But yeah, that is absolutely. He was our roommate of Kyle Kraft and I. Um, Never met him before that weekend, but he is an absolutely brilliant, intelligent, humorous fellow. Yeah, I think. I mean, teenage me was just fascinated with his accent and his underwear because the British just do things differently than Americans. So yeah, no, but yeah, he's a great guy, and I hope to see him again next month.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. Hope that goes well. All right. Well, since we're talking about 2000 of the decks, let me share my screen, and I think we'll go on to the next portion. And I'm going to click this button and wait for the pop-up to happen here. Yeah, let's do entire screen. Let's click allow, and you should be able to see what I'm sharing here in a second here. All right. So, not this one, this one. Yeah. All right. So, we talked about kind of what you were playing. So, I'm guessing this is what you did in 2009 for your ROPS deck. So was
Yeah.
this, and I guess you were inspired. You're saying you played some of the Trooper decks. So yeah, I'm guessing it was more ATST based than it was in 2000. How was it different?
Um, So no, this is definitely what I played in 2009. This is
Right. No, no, it's what you played in 2009 for sure. I'm talking about 2000. Like what, like your
oh,
2000 deck. Your 2000 ROPS was more
I didn't play
ATSTs.
ROPS in 2000.
Oh, okay. Well, what did you play in 2000? Oh, I'm
I
sorry.
mean, well,
Yeah, you said responsibility command. That's right. You
yeah,
said
yeah.
that.
So I mean, I definitely had a ROPS list, but then I pivoted to the Brigham. So the ROPS deaths, the list that I would have had I been playing it in 2000 before I met Martin Falk would have been the more traditional, swamp, desert, copy of Sand Whirl, forest, jungle. Right, I would have gone. Yeah, that's very similar to what I played.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, the so which deck do you want to talk about?
Well, no, I'm just bringing out. I'm just asking. Yeah, this was what Matt Sokol apparently played something around then. But okay, so your ROPS would have been forest, jungle, desert, and you would have been ATSTs based, or what?
Yeah,
What?
I mean, back in 2000, yeah, but I mean, I'm happy to talk about the Trooper version because I find the Trooper version to be more my play style. Like, so
Okay.
part of the problem with the ATST ROPS is that it's way more force hungry.
Mm-hmm.
So originally, people were doing the mob points thing or not, but they were floating Twixes. Like I distinctly remember having Dagobah Cave, Coruscant System,
Mm-hmm.
probably the fifth marker, probably a Death Star. There was all these like I don't want to say inefficient cards, but like it was a lot more variance. And when I played against Martin Falk and he's flipping, on turn two against me, and I'm quickly realizing like, whoa, now I definitely would have played the fifth marker and not the Wampa Cave because
Why not the Wampa Cave?
so you can, well, obviously the AT-ST version plays tramples, right?
Okay, yeah, I
So
guess so.
Dagobah Cave, they cannot drain you at. Death Star is not easy for them to get to necessarily. Coruscant, same deal. Like I even remember playing, I'm pretty sure that the original version like had like a floating Kashik system. And the argument for it at the time was like, oh, floating zeros aren't so bad. You can just pay two and pull out the drain system and then apply more pressure or whatever.
Yeah.
So I mean the deck definitely changed, but I fell out of love with. I mean, ROPS has always been a tremendous deck.
Yeah.
Insane, force strain -1 plus decree is like GG against half the field. Being able to tutor for any card is insane back then. I mean,
Yeah.
the way you win games of Star Wars is you reduce variance, and ROPS was like, well, I don't care that I draw one for Battle Destiny. It's really a 4. I mean, that was tremendous. So, but the pace of the Trooper deck is great. I love the pace of the Trooper deck. I love the fact that you could snap, beat someone down. You hope that they didn't have an on the edge to save their guy. I mean, nobody played Hujix back then, so it was just very efficient. And like, I think the Martin Falk version had other cards that were interesting, like full scale alert to try to trap them. Yeah, get that Hujix out of there. No one plays Hujix. But yeah, there was all sorts of tricksy trooper stuff. I think the European deck building, like I don't have any projective telepathies in here. I think that they used 2 projective telepathies in part for AFA. I was playing Anger, Fear, Aggression because I'm like, that's good enough against AFA. Yeah, I mean, this is definitely frozen assets. Obviously, was in there for
Main course.
main course. Sorry,
Right.
I'm looking at frozen assets. I'm looking at main course and I'm saying frozen
Yeah,
assets.
yeah,
Like
no,
the
I
two
mean
are.
that's the main thing. I don't know. I mean, did you were you ever able to use the lost version successfully, or you don't even care?
No, I mean, when I played on, so in this, if this is the list from 2009, then I probably definitely used the main course used portion. I don't know that I ever used the lost portion back in 2009. But in 2009, again, I was only going off of what things were. When I played this same deck in 2001, it had changed slightly. I don't remember if you
I have
know.
it. Yeah. So you changed just a little bit because you added Emperor in 2000. Yeah, 2021 you had Emperor basically, and I guess you got rid of an
Well,
ability. So you had it in 2009,
and I
2000.
added a tactical support, and I think I increased the point mans because order to engage is like a win condition, you know.
Yeah.
And obviously, I took out the main course because on Gemp you can't play frozen assets.
Correct,
And I mean, if
which is a big thing. And please, I don't know if you have any sway. We really need frozen assets in because they're like like yeah like the Yannick Lapointe's deck from 2000. He had frozen assets. Raphael Asselin, the other Canadian, had frozen assets. Obviously, some of the people in the 2009 tournament did.
I
So
mean, frozen assets was like a win condition. I mean, the
yeah,
whole reason mains could beat Tie Swarm or something like that was like assemble your Super Falcon and a Destiny Adder, and then draw their fire them, frozen assets them, unless they have an operational as planned to put a force back on top of their force
oh,
pile, you win the game. Like that card was in conjunction with draw their fire was literally a win condition against some decks. So it's obviously it's a very, in terms of looking at every single Star Wars card that exists, nothing, it is a literally unique effect. Being able to put a card down and say somehow these cards don't temporarily exist. It's a challenge to code. Um, and obviously we have only so many volunteer hours. Jet Sardim, Jared Greenwald, he's a primary slicer right now. He's also another Kashyyyk guy, but yeah, I'm sorry to all the retro folks. Not having frozen assets in there definitely changes the way
it
we
would
run.
definitely change. But like I've said this before, if we could get a GoFundMe, definitely definitely support because it would definitely help the retro from a light side perspective. That's all I'll say there. So
It would revolutionize how retro is played on GIMP. It is that significant of a card. I totally agree.
yeah,
But yeah, I mean, this list, so barriers as a result are way more valuable for the dark side
absolutely.
in this particular.
Yeah.
I mean, it changes when it comes to reflections too, because you get the bit shuffle canceller for it. But and obviously, yeah, people play Skywalkers or whatever. But like barrier, without the threat of frozen assets, barrier is way more valuable. And
Yeah.
I want to say, like, I think I have a current build of this now, and I want to say I've increased the barriers again. Like, I mean,
Wow.
it's hard not to keep tweaking, right? Not sure that my tweaks are for the best, but
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I know that I think I had the deck from, let me grab Yannick's deck here because Yannick, he used a lot of barriers too, even back then. So let me
barrier
see.
is one of the greatest cards in Star Wars. I mean, being able to steal priority like that, it lets you represent weak and then come back. I mean, I'm sure you're familiar with the old Hidden Mains deck.
Absolutely. Yeah.
old, Dagobah and Korlag and Yoda's Hut, and then you had some docking bays or whatever. I mean, that deck was like 2 or 3 barriers, a whole bunch of recyclable sixes for tracking, and then like, double clash, double sorry. Um, and the whole premise of the deck was like, I'm going to put myself out there. And I mean, I don't know. It's Brian Hunter's list. That's a terrible list.
It's a terrible
Um,
list. Oh my gosh. Andy Slaga likes this list. Okay, can you give me a better hidden mains list, please? That would be
I mean,
helpful.
I can. I mean, I'll have to work. But like, so for instance, it
Yeah.
is stupid to play Transmission Terminated because Transmission Terminated is a light side, because Visage is a light side helper card, right? This deck has 4 edges in it. Guess what? If you two are both losing force and only one side of the force can retrieve, you should be happy with Visage being on the table. So like that is a terrible card choice to play Visage or to play Transmission Terminated. I love Visage as a light player because I tend to play mains decks. So anything that makes the game go faster is wonderful. Let's both lose force. Let's get this game over. I'm okay losing force. I don't get stressed out by losing force, especially not if I know I can retrieve 4, 5, 6 times off of looping edges, right? So that's anyway. Brian Hunter was a very passive player.
Okay.
I like to be more aggressive. Hence the troopers. And I'm looking at my current version of the trooper ROPS, and what you just had up there is nearly identical. I think I've added like an emperor.
Okay. One more emperor. Okay. Yeah.
And I think yep, emperor, and I don't have a full scale alert.
Okay.
Whatever. I mean, the core is there, right? It's quick flip. It's sometimes you barrier them, sometimes you don't. You don't really care. Sometimes you take overflow, sometimes you don't. And like against Throne Room, your win condition is like, can I make them play 6 senses because that's 18 force loss, right? Like that's. But yeah, it's just yeah. That's what so I swapped an Emperor for a Cadet. Other than that, everything's the same. I don't know why. I'm sure I had a reason for doing it at some point.
Hmm. Okay. Well, I mean, yeah, Dark Deal 44, he has a version of this deck too. He only has one cadet as well. I'll share with you his list. He does a trooper version as well. Yeah, this one right here. Yeah. I like 2 cadets just because 2 cadets means you can get one from your objective. You can potentially flip it. Of course, they have one ability. But yeah, he has a similar
It's a
version.
double-edged sword. It's a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
Because obviously, he's playing extra Twixes for more activation. I think that having more ships is way more important. I don't know how many times I've been flipped back and you need to be able to block their control of the system in order to flip and then you can run away or whatever. Bad feeling of eye is a bit of a luxury. I feel like the +2 tax does enough already. Blast door control seems. I'm sure that a lot of these decisions are based on the way the meta's gone. I also find, okay, he does have foresights. A lot more random troopers.
He's trying to do the HUX, right? And obviously, the Death Star troopers, combo with each
Yeah,
other, and the Endor troopers, do, especially Barrack and Iroh and whatnot. But yeah, he's trying to get a very quick, tactical support, trooper support. Yeah, he has like 3 trooper assaults. You have like more supports, less assaults
yeah,
than
and
he does.
it's just a reducing variance thing, right? My favorite opening card hand is having a barrier and then tactical support because that means I'm going to flip with exactly what I want in a preliminary, rudimentary part of evasion. I can understand splitting 2 and 2 on the projectives and the barriers, but again, I'm sure his is more nuanced for the meta. I do appreciate seeing I've Lost R2. I think that's one of my favorite tech cards from that era, which a lot of people actually weren't playing, but it's like, it's just such a simple solution. Oh, they have their humongous home one. I don't want to deal with that. You go over here, drain for 0 at Carida, right?
Exactly. exactly. Yeah, it's basically saying, if I can't win the space battle, I can just strand you, and
Exactly.
you know,
And it's very efficient. If you only have to commit one ship and one card to neuter their ship, okay, great. I've spent three, four, my Vader's personal shuttle and my I've lost R2. Okay, I've spent three-fourths and I've satisfied battle order.
yeah. And I wanted to show you, like, because there were a bunch of ROPS in the last few years, and Dylan kind of did a similar deck. I don't know if you looked at it or whatever, but he did a similar one to what you did. He did this. So he had a little bit less tactical support. He did a little bit less trooper assaults, right? He'd have the ability like you had. Um, yeah, he got worried about nudges, but it was also interesting that in the old deck list you had like two, you guys used to do like two Tempest Scout ones. And I'm guessing you had
Yeah,
two of these
so
yeah, go ahead.
yeah, so that card was super important because it circumvented the frozen assets, right?
Right.
Like
Exactly.
reacting for free with the two guys meant that you could always bring Barrick or Elsic over. It was a huge safety net card, and obviously, looking at all the lists that you've shown us here, I think the only one that had two was that original one from 2009.
Correct.
When I came back to the yeah, that's the one because
Yeah.
that was a real life tournament where Frozen Assets was that this list was taken from a real life tournament where Frozen Assets was live.
Yes.
When you look at all the rest of these lists, though, it's only a one off because the threat of Frozen Assets isn't there. So I mean, I can see that there's like subtle, weird differences, changes between these lists, and I mean, obviously Dylan was focused on Revolution hate. To me,
Yeah.
find that like that was my knee jerk. Like, why is this in here? Why wouldn't you just play Decree? Because you can actually satisfy Decree naturally, very easily in ROPS, right? If you're
Correct.
playing against a Revo deck, if you have, I guess his logic is like, well, if I don't know I'm playing Revo, I'm not going to start Decree. Um, but even if you don't know that they're playing Revo, flipping costs you what, 3 or 4 force? So as soon as it becomes evident that they're playing Revo, you spend your first 2 force to go get your Decree, and then you just put 2 ships in space, and you've controlled 2 systems in a site, and all the Revos are off. Like, I'm sure he has a reason for making that decision. You know,
Yeah, I mean, I know he was worried about nudges. He worried about TRM, like a TRM deck. Like he lost to a TRM deck. Apparently, like the TRM deck had a lot of nudges and had revolution. And he wanted to, if he fought that kind of deck again, he had a quick way of kind of flipping. Because Evader, like you talk about efficiency, right? Evader's, a Destiny 4, you can use it right then. You don't have to control, two planets and one, two systems and one planet. You just use this right away. And as long as they don't have a sense or something, right? Of course, if they were
which
playing like your TRM deck with like 7 senses, this might not work as well. But I don't remember offhand how many revolutions you had in your deck. We can look there in a second, kind of thing.
I only have one,
Yeah,
but regardless, I mean, it's just one of those. So you talk about a quick solution. Well, I would argue that tactical support, changing those evaders into tactical support would be better because then you can, without tactical support, you're at the mercy of whatever you drew, which is a lot of typically 2 cost characters. Whereas if you have a tactical support, you streamline it so you know that you're getting your 1 cost deploy troopers, which if you're getting force choked, that's I value. So I look at, especially in this era, you want cards that are good against everything before you want cards that are good against a narrow thing, right? So Decree has massive implications across many different deck matchups. Evader is literally only good against one thing. Tactical support works against everything. Why wouldn't you want to trade? It's an efficiency card, right? It's like trade 1 card in hand for 3 cards of your choosing. That's extremely powerful. I would rather have cards that are good than cards that are cute. That's a motto that we say. The good cards are better than the cute cards. I can totally understand throwing in a silver bullet like Evader, depending upon the circumstance. Like if this was in a single limb and you knew that the person you were playing against has that tendency to go Revo, yeah, sure, you can tech for that one person by throwing in 1 card for 1 game or whatever. But just I don't I my ROPS lists whatever the current iteration is just a generic list at this point. Like I'm not trying to, not that one. That thing is so dated.
Yeah.
Whatever my current ROPS list is very generic. I don't have anyone in mind because I don't play the format enough. It's just like in my head, what do I hate? I hate order to engage. So I'm going to play 2 copies of Point Man, and then everything else is just about consistency. So tactical supports and barriers and trooper assaults. That's it.
Okay. No, that
Yeah.
makes sense. No, I think Brad Kipple, he won the 2024 Retro CS, right? And he played one. I'll just grab him. I'll show you real quick here. Um, yeah, so he did more of a traditional similar ROPS, right? Kind of with
Yeah.
ATSD. This was kind of based off of Kevin Shannon, but yeah, he didn't do Decree, which I love Decree too. But yeah, I think he was trying to be efficient in his own way. Not, I mean, of course, he had a Coruscant, right? He had a Walkulin, but he could have done Decree instead. But yeah, he
Yeah.
opted for Rebel Evader here.
Well, again, this deck is, so the advantage of the Trooper ROPS is that you can actually satisfy Decree for very little force because you are playing Emperor Shuttle, Vader Shuttle, and all your characters are dirt cheap.
Yeah.
This deck is definitely a slower pace, and it is much more challenging to get Decree into effect on this particular deck, just because nothing is inexpensive. Like this deck is definitely hit harder by choke. And I think a fair number of these guys are also, I guess not too many of them. I was just looking to see who was getting hit by Goonie Tay.
I mean,
I
just
think
a
he only
few. I
had
mean,
like
just
what,
Janus, Emperor, Vader, and Sim. You know,
Mara and
Mira.
Sim
Yeah.
and Igar. Yeah, I mean that was sort of part of the advantage of the Trooper version is you were effectively immune to Goonie Tay because Emperor you never pay full price for him if you're paying the shuttle. Which why is he playing the Emperor in here, not playing the shuttle? That is like just pure efficiency.
I mean, I agree with you. I like the shuttle better. I love the free deploy. The only thing I can say, and playing some games, you mentioned X-wing laser cannon, right? The only thing I can say is that X-wing laser cannon, is devastating, right? So if you swap Dreadnought for this, you'll slaughter everything here except boss, basically, potentially, if you track your number right, good enough. That's the only argument I could say. But yes, overall, +1 destiny, really good. Sometimes you have to beat a Super Falcon or whatever, or you have to beat a Super Home 1. I like the extra destiny, but there are times where a Dreadnought lets you can shuttle up from the system, you know, and it doesn't get auto killed by this, is the only thing I can say.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm just looking. I mean, I don't think he actually plans on fighting in space because, like to beat the home one, you need that barrack subtraction. Um, so I mean, and obviously some of the what is it, the Death Star troopers add together,
Yeah,
even in space. Not
correct.
Irol and Draelson don't, but I'm pretty sure that the 2 Death Star troopers do. I mean, you can assemble a pretty nuts.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
Sergeant Major Einfield adds regardless.
yeah,
So
correct. Yeah, he adds. Yeah. Enfield adds a destiny regardless. This guy only does if you're present, but if you have these two, get 1 destiny. And
yeah,
yeah, Barrack works in space. You're right. And
Kipple is a very and it's funny. He also I always think of him as an Albany guy because when I was growing up as a kid, he was actually up in Albany, like with the same Twilligers, Sokals, and Chew, and so on. But he's lived in Atlanta he moved out of there. He's been in Atlanta for the last 10 years or longer. But I always think of him as an Albany guy. But he's very deliberate. He likes to do he loves his big blue. Absolutely. But he likes to do that setup. He doesn't like to go aggressive into you. He likes to do his setup and do something to change the math and make you come to him or whatever. So, I mean, I can understand why this deck works for him, but to me, it just is so passive. Like the whole grab alter, like I want cards that are more proactive. Um, I like to engage. But this one is definitely a setup. Let me build up my toys and then make it very difficult for you to mess with me. Um,
yeah,
yeah, this is This is more akin to, like you said, but based on the Kevin Shannon version, this is very similar to what was, I think, the more popular ROPS iteration prior to that 2000 Worlds, and then that 2000 Worlds, the Trooper thing became more known and kind of took over. But it was short-lived, right? Because
True.
as soon as JPSTD came out, it was very challenging to play ROPS or Throne Room. So its moment in the sun was fleeting.
True. Yeah, and yeah, and would you say, I guess, when you're playing kind of this kind of ROPS version, you're trying to go for like a turn one kill. Like you don't have, it looks like you took out HUX. Like you had HUX back in 2009.
Yeah,
Like why'd you
yeah.
take it? Because he like you're not, you think he's not necessary because he adds a little bit to power, right? To the
I
stormtroopers
don't
there.
know.
Okay.
I think, well, I think the big difference between the 2009 version and the whatever was the inclusion of the two Death Star troopers, Enfield and Torrent. And I feel like I just needed to make space, and I felt like he was a stat stick and not much else, and that he wasn't pullable. It was like, okay, he's not a trooper. I can't pull him. He doesn't draw on his own. Um,
Yeah.
you know, I just did. He was the worst of the characters. I don't know.
I mean, he's not a pilot. I mean, you can't put him in
Yeah,
Tempo Scale
that's not
one.
a
You can't put him
consideration.
on here, right? He's just another guy who can get shot. I guess I'm just because when I see Trooper Assault, I'm assuming like, okay, you want to have like a hand of like 14 troopers. You wait for them to deploy on ROPS, and you go bam, 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 bam. Lose 30 force.
I don't think it's that simple. I don't. Yes, I know that a beatdown is an out, but I don't ever like plan my game around anticipating I'm going to get one. Um, like you hold back things in your hand so that you can threaten that. But I don't think that you don't win games by just flipping and then drawing and then sending five guys to wherever they are and hoping that your trooper assault beatdown lands. Like that's not how the like you have to play the board position game first. Um, and ideally you get them going a bit wide, and then it makes it easier for you to do more effective beatdowns, right? I don't want to have to, if they have playing against Profit or something, right? If they have Ben and if they have like a stack of three dudes, I don't want to fight into three dudes. I want to fight against one dude. And the way you get them to fight against one dude is you make them try to go wider, right? You try to get decree and you're -1 in effect. Obviously, projection of a Skywalker is annoying in that Profit matchup, but I mean, I play a Trooper Blitz deck right now and open all the time, and people hate it. But I mean, the way it wins is you get them going wide. As soon as they go wide, then they're vulnerable. Trying to always attack into them is not how this deck wins. It tries to bully and pick on them where they're weak. But if they don't give you an opening, why you just don't do it. So I don't think of this deck in terms of a beatdown deck. I think of this as a board position deck that has a hammer that's it's just another tool in the deck. But I would not anticipate relying on the trooper beatdown. I mean, there's plenty of decks where you can't even do it, right? You're playing against EBO, although EBO is an auto loss with the Kree. But like hidden base and stuff like that, you're never going to get a beatdown in, right? So this deck is not predicated on the beatdown. The beatdown is just a very nice tool to have. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
So as far as playing, and if someone wants to try to play your version of kind of Trooper ROPS, I mean, when it comes to deploying, right? Do you only want to deploy? I mean, the standard thing is, usually put a guy in Death Star 2 docking bay. You get your
Yep.
mobilization points there. And
Yep.
then maybe turn two, if you're lucky, like maybe you drew one. Well, turn two you could potentially, right? Are you trying to flip turn two, but you only
Yeah.
want to
I
do that if you have
almost
the,
always, yeah.
yeah.
Almost always, yeah. So like you said, turn one, guy to the non-dock, one site on Raltier, that guy, Trooper Davenfelth, home away from home at the Death Star 2 docking bay. And then turn two, if you're lucky, you get to hit another Raltier site, and you are able to pull the Death Star, I'm sorry, the spaceport docking bay. So you only have to play two characters and then docking bay transit over. So you end your turn with 1/1/1. I mean, you're almost certainly not drawing battle destiny at any of these locations, but with the deploy tax, you're only giving him 4 icons, representing, barriers or projective telepathies or Tempest Scout 6 or whatever in your hand. You really don't care if they battle you. I mean, it's not ideal, but like, who cares if you lose 1 overflow or 5 overflow or 10 overflow? It doesn't matter. Like, you don't. It's a weird statement to say, but you don't lose the game by losing force. It's okay to lose force. It's like in Magic, people talk about life being a resource. Obviously, Star Wars is a bit different because you could lose important cards in losing your life, and obviously, as you get lower in life force, that restricts what options you can take. But losing force early is not the end of the world. You know, keep your hand size up, and know that if they have extended early game to do something against you, you're actually sort of at an advantage because your deck is designed to operate on such little force. Your deck is likely going to operate more efficiently in those early turns than their deck is. You know, if they're paying the deploy tax and playing more expensive characters, their hand is nothing. Their hand is teeny. So yeah, no, I almost always flip on turn 2. Sometimes I might consolidate. You know, if I have the street is actually probably the most important site to pull initially. That's always my go-to first.
Yeah, makes
But
sense.
yeah, I mean, so you deploy 2 guys, you move 1 over, you flip, and then you consolidate the first 2 guys you deployed at one of the other sites. You know, that way at least they can't necessarily battle those 2. If you're holding a trooper assault, you know, you might play a trooper assault on your lone guy just so he's immune to attrition and you peel some. I mean, there's all sorts of different. I mean, it's not so automatic because you have to really gauge what your opponent's doing, and that helps determine the risk involved, right? Like against DBO or against hidden base, I'm totally comfortable flipping with 1/1/1. Like, what do I have to fear for them? If they make a play against me on turn 1, they better have the Hujix because they've given me something to beat down. Not necessarily that next turn, but maybe 2 turns from now. Yeah, I mean, it's just every game is different. I mean, obviously the best thing to do, play games with it, and don't concede. I did the Core and Kendall Hallman is doing a little 10 questions thing, and one of the pieces of advice they wanted to know is how do you get better at Star Wars? And I said people snap concede way too early. That there is huge value and benefit in playing out a game. Just because you learn how to operate on less force, you really make somebody beat you instead of just giving up and trying over again. Like, you know, if you're going back to that Worlds, you know, I got overflowed by like 10 or 12 or something at Worlds, and everyone was like, oh, Hayes has lost the first game by 20. And, you know, I kept playing because I'm in the finals of Worlds. You know, you don't just stop playing, and I won the game by 10, right? And I think a lot of people playing on Gimp, it's easy to just say, oh, this isn't worth it, I'm going to start over. It is worth it. You should play. Even if you're losing, play all the way because that's how you get better. So playing this deck, getting beat down on turn 2 because you took a risk, it's fine. You can still win the game. Just because you lose 10 force on turn 2 doesn't mean you lose the game necessarily.
No, thank you for that. Yeah, Joe Horby says that told me the same thing. He says, yeah, you need to keep playing because you learn things, right? Win or lose that game, you're learning something, and actually, that's true.
Very true.
So I guess what you're saying. So if you're playing like a hidden base X-Wings deck, like you're playing like a true a typical Chew X-Wing, or you assume it's a Chew X-Wing deck, right? And that deck they typically only have like maybe 2 mains, right? They maybe have Obi-Wan with Saber, maybe they have Luke with Saber, right? In that particular case, if you think they're playing this, you're like, you know what? I'm just gonna deploy, flip turn 2, even if I don't have a Trooper Assault, even if I don't have a Imperial Barrier, even if I don't have a Gick in hand, you know,
Yep.
the chance
Because
of
it's a
them being able
bad
to.
decision to go early with that lone EPP, because what's the best outcome? Like, opportunity cost is a huge part of it. The hidden base X-Wing deck is the way it has to get out its locations and balance the hand size to ensure that you have the X-Wings to go to all those locations. It requires a lot of force early on, right? You need to be able to draw those cards. So if a hidden-based X-Wing player wants to go off script and spend 7 force to deploy an EPP to beat down my one guy, I'm thrilled about it. That's a play mistake on their part because now they have given me bait, something that I can actually attack when I'm good and ready. And I know that they have slowed down their own game plan tremendously by not setting up the way they're supposed to with hand size tricks to find their X-Wings, to keep their X-Wings alive, to flip, and so on. So like, Chew would never play an EPP that early. Chew would wait and saves that EPP until you get so low on resources that you can't punish him for doing it, and then he'll drop it to his own forest or wherever just to satisfy that late game battle plan. Or if your hand is now 2 cards, Chew is an excellent gambler, right? He knows how to diagnose risk. He'll be like, well, I bet at this stage of the game, he's probably pitched all of his barriers. Here's my opportunity to cause a few overflow, right? Like it's a tool. I mean, hidden base should not be attacking you on turn 2. That's for sure.
Okay, probably not. And obviously, I mean, TRM, right? Obviously, your other deck is TRM. You've played this a lot. I mean, obviously, its advantages is that most of these TRMs have a lot of Twixes. Yes, there's a docking bay version. You have tempo. They have the tempo advantage, right? They're a turn ahead of you. I'm guessing if you're facing a TRM deck and they have 12 cards in hand, maybe you wait a little bit. Maybe you wait till you can make sure you can have, 2 guys at 2 sites and then flip, or how does that change?
Depends.
Okay.
It really depends. I mean, obviously, Gick is a huge card. And like I said, that matchup is one of my favorites because it's a chess match, right? So if I'm the dark side player playing against Throne Room, every turn, because you get so little force, I am diagnosing every card in my force pile every turn as the dark side player. And my outs are absolutely the barriers, the trooper assaults. I really want to just draw any interrupts that I can, and I want to play them to bait their senses. I think playing the throne room deck is also challenging, right? Because you have to understand when it's worthwhile to sense something. So a lot of times, because you also have to sense the reacts with the vehicle going back and forth or whatever. So
Yes.
trying to exhaust their senses and doing damage through there's no try is certainly a tack to take. I still love to rush to flip, but again, it's dependent on my hand, right? I'm not going to rush to flip if that leaves me with no counter beat. Also, I recognize that the throne room deck is very slow. If you don't give them something to fight, they can't really do any damage. So like there is certainly merit in slow playing. Then you sort of put you make them make a decision, right? Throne room would prefer the dark side flip and then they get to attack into. So you can play like a little waiting game depending on your hand. You might decide to just chill out at the docking bay or gang up on the docking bay because that's even like your battleground one. Yeah. So you might leave like 1 or 2 guys at the Death Star 2 docking bay just to get those icons established, and then start building at the second docking bay again for that active to help mitigate that resource discrepancy. If they do want to fight you there, you're like, okay, great, you're paying +3 for most of your characters, and then of course they're if they're battling into you at the docking bay, you're threatening things like the trooper assault or whatever. But you can slow flip. If they think that they need to like start occupying multiple sites to prevent you from flipping, they are kind of giving you targets for you to attack into as the dark side player. So it's a very interesting chess match game. Obviously, the biggest thing is how many Tuxes does the throne room player draw? Because if they're activating like 15 when you're only activating 8, like that changes the complexion of the game dramatically for the dark side player, because every force becomes so precious at that point. You can't sort of be as reckless in your deploy, right? You want to make sure that something you deploy actually stays on the ground or on the table, I should say. But
Okay.
Yep.
All right. So I guess, yeah. So I guess you have things like Tempest Scout 6. back in the day, frozen assets was a thing. Were you still going to leave one force just because, even if you had the risk they could frozen assets you anytime? Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's always bluff it, right? So, um, turn 0, usually turn 1, draw up everything, because it's not like in this environment where you automatically get a grabber on the table that costs 1. So early on, um, you always drop, and then at a certain point in the game, it just behooves you to start bluffing the barrier, bluffing the Tempest Scout or whatever. But people always forget about Tempest Scout. It's hilarious. Nobody remembers that guy.
It's a good card. I really like it. I really like it, especially if you can stay alive. Like it moves for free as a react. Usually often it's the first sacrifice sometimes, but yeah, it's good. You made an interesting comment about counterbeat because when I play a lot of times I will deploy, make sure I have a defensive card. I'll make sure that I'll have a barrier, or I'll have an assault, or I'll have like my Tempest Scout 6, in reserve, or I'll have some way to defend myself. I have not always been thinking about, oh, I need to also have cards for the counterbeat. So do you think in your mind, like if you're like playing a TRM or you're playing like a mains heavy deck, like you should be like have cards to deploy or transfer over, have cards for defense, and have cards like maybe like 2 of the Death Star troopers, or 3 of the Endor troopers at the same time. Help me
Yeah,
understand that a bit.
yeah. Like I love to pull Iroll and Barrack and Drailsland into hand, but I hate to deploy them, because if they're deployed, they're on the table, which means my opponent can avoid them. Those are cards that I like to hold back in reserve. Obviously, Wallen's another one. So it's like you want to flip with your crappier characters. Like that's why Trooper Davenfell is great. Bursk is one of my favorite initial pulls off of tactical support, because he's that leader that you need to turn on the prefix office. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, you just want crap dudes out, represent weakness. Let them kill your crappy guys, barrier or Gick or whatever, or take overflow, and then you come back with the better characters on the counter beat for sure.
Okay. And obviously, tactical sport, you have to lose a force. So,
Mm-hmm.
so how are you choosing what to lose? Because you
Yeah,
can.
sometimes it's very challenging. I mean, I've played enough games in this format to know which cards are good against which matchups, like which decks. So, if I sit down and play against an EBO X-Wing deck or whatever, which cards are valuable, which ones aren't, completely changes compared to when I'm playing against a throne room. So, I mean, you just have to quickly assess. I mean, I tend to lose from hand whenever possible, because losing a known card is better than not. You don't want to top deck one of your one sites that you need to flip. You don't want to top deck, you're playing against EBO X-Wing, you're never going to top deck until you have Decree, right? That doesn't make sense. Why would you top deck and risk losing Decree when that card is your victory condition? So
True.
a lot of times, yeah, it's just it depends. I can't.
No,
Every matchup is different. Every card's value changes based on the matchup, and also based on what else is in your hand. So
I get.
that can be a challenging decision, though.
I guess I was thinking though, because if you were fighting EBO, wouldn't you just want to start with decree, right? You just arrest order, decree, mobilization points, unless you
Nope.
think there's no try so
Nope.
viable that they could sense you. Go ahead.
So that's exactly it. If I'm playing against somebody that does the new secret base or starts the first marker otherwise, I am not sure which version they're playing. And I would much rather start with there is no try, because if they're playing senses, I want to have that. I want those dealt with up front. If it's any other version of like that's not a Sense mains platform, um, I can afford to wait, right? I can flip, and then it's just me spending 2 force and taking out the decree, right? I don't need decree on turn 1 or turn 2. I need decree by turn 3 or 4 or 5, whenever I've decided to take over 2 Hoth locations. Same thing for resistance. Like I think the only deck I start resistance against is probably Mind What You've Learned, because that's the one that sort of screams AFA the most. But against something else that's not Mind What You Have Learned, SAC is always live. So I start There Is No Try 90% of the time. And if it becomes evident that I need to get out the resistance or the search and destroy or the decree or whatnot, I mean, that's what flipping is for. You just pull the card you need at that point. But in terms of a turn 1, turn 2 impact, There Is No Try is always the safest start.
Yeah, I like that. I appreciate that. Cool. All right. So, I could go the deck choices. I think all these, there's merit to pretty much all these cards. You wouldn't put them otherwise, but of course, Trample's a good one. So, kind of the ATSD, main ones, they might use two, but I think one still works. You can still use that. You can still track that. Still a 4, still good. Search and Destroy, very common here. Lost R2. Yeah, I think First Strike. My only hesitancy about this is just because you don't have the blast door controls and just because so many people use barrier, right? But tell
I
me
mean,
about this
you
card.
don't lead with that card. Like that's the card that you play last.
Yeah.
It is the action last before you go to the battle phase. And I mean, someone could write a dissertation on when it is and is not appropriate to play First Strike. Um, just because you can, just because it lights up in your hand, does not mean you do it, right? There are plenty of games where you have to recognize that it's turn 3 and that for every other part of this game, they're going to be battling into you. So a lot of times it's not correct to play it on turn 3. It's a greedy thing to do, right? You need to save that card. It is like when that card hits the table. I mean, one of the there wait, even in open, like I mean, when we discuss replays and stuff, an observation someone will make is like, wow, they had draw their fire or First Strike in their hand from turn 1, and it wasn't until turn 7 that they played it. Like the timing of that card is everything. So it is such a catch them with their pants down type card. Like you need to just wait for that moment. It's not worth expending it early just to get a 2/4 swing a lot of the time. It is a card that requires timing and some finesse to really maximize. And before you play it, early game, think what are turns 5 through 8 going to look like? Who's going to initiate more battles in that stage of the game? Are they going to be coming at me? You certainly don't want to, play your First Strike, have it do nothing effectively, and then 3 turns down the road, the hidden base X-Wing drops their Luke, battles, retrieves one, makes you lose one, hits the guy, blah, 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 and then retrieves their Luke. And, like you don't want to give them that tool to use against you. So First Strike is just such a staple card. It wins so many games, but understanding how the board state is like absolutely the crux of that card. You don't just throw it down just because you can.
Okay. So obviously, you touched TRM, right? I mean, obviously, a lot of decks they tend to play what's that, Fallen Portal, right? And Fallen
Mm-hmm.
Portal for a trooper version can be devastating, right? If you're attacking them and they use Fallen Portal, you can lose 2 of your guys instantly. And there goes your kind of combo potentially.
Yeah, I respect Fallen Portal a lot. I reckon that I will not initiate battle at the docking bay without First Strike protecting me. Like I'm like a 1 out of 10 times I might actually battle you at a docking bay type of guy. I hate Fallen Portal. So
Yeah.
trick to beating Hayes. Put a lone guy at a docking bay, and I'm just gonna be like, it's yours. You've got it. I can't take that risk. Or you wait till Vader or something. But yeah.
Okay. Yeah. This makes sense as an anti-Fallen Portal. I mean, the other biggest interrupt you have here is like Trooper Assault that you played about. Otherwise, like during a battle, I don't. There's not really you wouldn't need to play this during a battle. That wouldn't. Well, unless you think they're gonna like react away or something weird. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I mean Arnett helps with the dodge stuff. Not that dodge is super prevalent in this meta because Sense was so popular. Dodge was a very dodge didn't. I mean, Dodge is great, but Dodge really took off when Watch Your Step was a deck, not only because you could play it from Lost Pile, but because you knew that it was not going to get canceled by Sense. Um,
Yeah.
And then, of course, everyone started playing Git combos because they're like, oh, this cancels Dodge. But yeah, no. Arnet, I mean, there's not, I mean, Arconas, I guess, were a thing, but I mean, you have Trample. No, Full Scale Alert was really for when you start doing the dance on Raltier, you know, if you're chasing them with your stack, then they you know they have two guys and they move one away. You play it in between, and then all of a sudden their guy is they can no longer group their two characters together, and it gives you an opportunity. It can provide an opening for a beatdown. I mean, it even works in space too. So
Yeah, true. As long as they're not a smuggler. So yeah.
yeah, I mean, but like you can like trap like a lone X-wing, or like if you know that they have hyper escape, you're like, haha, and I drop my whatever ship. Doesn't matter, right? You can get a beat down in on a lone X-wing if they were expecting to run away. So it's again, I get Full Scale Alert is arguably a cuter card than it is a good card, but it has universal implications, right? It can work offensively, it can work defensively. It's a board control card that just so happens to like sometimes set up beatdowns, right? Um, yeah,
True.
it's a good card.
I like it. I like it. Okay. Any other comments before we move off of ROPS?
Nope.
Okay. All right. So your other decks, I guess we could talk about. So and sorry, remind me what did you use in 2000? Sorry, remind me again. What was the deck?
It was Throne Room in 2000.
Throne Room in 2000. Okay. All right. So 2000, right? So I had so you played day two, 2009. You played TRM Nudj deck, and then day one you kind of played a Mind We Have Learned. So you start Mind We
Yeah,
Learned, then you
yeah.
switched it. Yeah.
So in 2009, I mean, my brother told me about the tournament, and I was like, oh, I wanna do it because why not? And I ended up play testing on Holotable exclusively with Eric Inspect the Deck George. He was one of the Quebecois who hung out with Yannick and Dominic and all the that whole crew. Um, anyway, he was Inspect the Deck on Deck Tech, and like he and I just have always we're like same age. You know, we were on the younger side back then. We've always stayed in touch. He actually is living in he's from Quebec, but he's living in Serbia now. He actually came over to that World Championship in 2020 or 2024 this past year. It's fantastic seeing him after all these years or whatever. But he was my sole playtest partner for this retro event they hosted in 2009, and we realized that ROPS was like beating everything. And we tested the whole gambit. Like we did the whole EBO, hidden bays, blah blah blah, and ROPS Troopers was just winning everything. So we're like, how many people are going to be on that deck? Whatever. And we kind of decided that this was like a fine day one deck because it just did its thing. It played solitaire. It had not great lines, but it had lines against everything. I didn't really like the deck because, like, again, I prefer to be more interactive. Yeah, this deck is terrible. I think I lost all three games that I played with it, and I only made it to the second day of this competition because I got the bye for light. So I went 4-0 with the Trooper ROPS, and I think I went 0-3 with this, but then it was enough. I don't know. It was a small tournament, but so 5-3 was fine.
Okay.
But yeah, this deck, I don't enjoy this deck. It's too it's too linear. Like it does one thing and that's it. I like decks that do nothing. I want to play a deck where I can make it up as I go. I want to have choices every turn, not like, oh, I need to draw this card before I can do a thing, right? So this deck is like, if they don't give you a system, like we learned like, well, The ROPS deck or the Brigham deck, or name the deck, right? If they don't put a system out on the table, this deck has to find its Kessel. And until it finds its Kessel, the only threat it has is AFA. Like, that's it. Like, that's stupid. So like, I don't know. This deck just bores me to death. Like,
Yeah.
it doesn't interact with the opponent. It doesn't have a good way of doing fun, different things. It is very predictable. And that's why I don't like this deck. It's hope to draw one of your ability 4 aliens, hope to draw your Kessel, deploy your on, hope they don't have a set for stun to blow them out type of thing. Like, it's just, oh, they lost R2'd on you. Great. You know, like, it's just, there's too many things that can go wrong in this deck. And it's just boring and bad. I don't like it.
Okay.
So I went 0-3 with this deck in the tournament.
Okay. Yeah, I mean,
And
the only thing I would say is it's somewhat similar to like Yannick's deck that he
yeah.
had a while ago. Only difference is your deck is obviously you had Kessel. So if I grab Yannick's deck from a while ago, I'm going to do Aslan as well. Also compared to Aslan's deck. So Aslan, not that one. This one, right? Yeah, this is probably the most similar one. Yours is fairly similar, right? He had 4 AFAs. He had Legendary Starfighter 2. He had 2 Falcons. He had Great Warrior hoping to grab, an ability 4 person here.
Mm-hmm.
He had Uncontrollable Fury. He had 2 Productions of Skywalker. But a lot of ways it's very similar. But you know, he didn't win that tournament either. And he was more dependent on drawing. He had no Kessels, right? So at least you had the potential to do a few more things. Is all I'll say for that.
Yep. It's just not a very proactive deck.
Okay.
And I like to be more engaged.
All right.
I like pressure.
All right. Let's talk about day 2 and your day 2 deck and your 2021 deck actually very similar. About the only difference I can see is that you had Mechanical Failure, right, in 2009. And
Yeah,
then
and actually, I mean, the 2009 list, I know that it definitely had a frozen assets in there. I don't remember which card
it,
was
it, it,
supposed
it
to be
would have
the.
been this one. Yeah, I can't put it in GAMP, but yeah, you would have, instead of Desperate
Okay.
Reach, we had Frozen Assets. Yeah, that's the
Yeah.
only difference here.
So I'm sure the mech failure was because I expected ROPS. And what was the other card that was different?
And the other one, you had a Grimtosh. So in 2021, you took Mechanical Failure for Grimtosh.
Yeah. Grimtosh is a good card, I hear.
I heard it too. Yeah, I felt. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty close to perfect. I mean, I'm pulling up my current list here. I'm sure I've changed something else. Like, I think TRM 2000.
I don't have your 2000 list. If you can share your 2000 list, I'd love it. But Decipher didn't post it, so I don't know what it was.
That's just no. Like, that's just the deck title in my in Get for me. Yeah. So I think the only difference from what you're showing there and what I have now is I've gone split to 1-1 on Falcon and Tanev. That's it. That's the only change.
Yeah, you're right. I'm sorry. Yeah, you had 2 Falcons there, and then you're right. Yeah, you had a Falcon tandem. Yeah, you
Oh,
switched
okay.
it.
Then
Yeah,
then that's like literally nothing has changed.
yeah, pretty much. Which I thought
I
was
mean, it's a high
interesting.
variance.
Yeah.
It's a high variance deck, right? You're clearly the games where you opening hand like 2 or 3 Twixes, like, okay, like, we can call this now because it just snowballs, right? Um, but this is like a great teaching deck because there's 2 fundamental things that you must learn. Well, there's more than 2 fundamental things, but the 2 that I was thinking of are recognizing, this is 1 and 1.5, recognizing which cards you need to win this particular matchup, and then being able to find them in your deck when you search for creatures and you know that there's no creatures, right? It's that information verify.
Mm-hmm.
So being able to determine exactly what's in your force pile every game at every turn is huge, right? Like against Brigham, I'm counting my senses, right? How many senses and altars did I activate? because I know that there's gonna be a sack war if I'm playing against Bring 'Em Before Me. You know, if I'm playing against a Set Your Course deck, I am constantly looking to find out how and when I get to go to space. So I'm looking for where's my Falcon, where's my Tantive or whatever. Against ROPS, I'm like, I really want Honor of the Jedi. So I want either my Your Insight Serves You Well or my Signal or my Honor, right? So there's always cards that you need for specific matchups. So that initial counting your Twixes, counting your senses, counting your how many Obies and Lukes type of thing, like that exercise is very important in this deck. But then once you get rolling and you start getting some activation, then you stop doing that. And you start using your recyclables to track those fives, right? So playing a Signal and then putting an out of commission on top of it, or their turn, you play an out of commission, weapon left, or something like that, or out of commission, weapon left, out of commission, whatever the case may be, right? And then having the discipline to track those cards, sometimes it's 20 cards down, so you need to like, oh, I'm only activating 16. Okay, I'll activate my 16. It's 4 cards down now. Sometimes you need to top deck a few cards off of your deck just so you can hit those tracked cards earlier, even though that's not necessarily, if your hand is 17 cards, it's better to lose from hand. But if anyway, the deck has 2 different forms, right? It's the building phase where you're constantly searching for information, and then okay, now I've got all the cards that I need and I have infinite force. How do I play this perfectly to just, now that I'm down to 15 to 18 cards, track every card in the deck, make sure that there's still going to be zeros. That's why tracking is so important. You make sure those 4s and 5s that you see go in. Sometimes it's appropriate to alter your own effect just to get an extra destiny draw, put a 4 back in type of thing. Like there's lots of little tricks like that, but you get down to that 20 or less life force by design, right? Your hand is huge, and then the deck just hums because now you're drawing good destinies every single time. So, but again, Star Wars at its core, resource and information game, and this deck is definitely unfun with the resources. I love Force Choke. Goonie Tay is arguably one of my favorite cards. I didn't want to sell out for Revo. Like I just find Revo, like I'm not the play 5 Revos because that doesn't really advance your game state, but 1 Revo can certainly be devastating. I don't know how many times I've Revoed either the Death Star 2 docking bay or the Endor docking bay, and that makes Darkseid unhappy.
I agree with you. Well, sometimes even flipping the indoor docking bay means that you can chase them and they can't run away.
Exactly, and I mean, obviously the oldest trick in the book, right? You rotate your Masasi ruins, and you're like, haha, drain for 3. I mean, you do less and less. That's the play these days, right? Because typically dark is going to give you somewhere to go and somewhere to take over. And when there's limited number of battlegrounds on the table, if you own them and they don't, you just win the game. Even if you're only draining for 1 or 2 or something, it's a slow death, but it's a safe path to victory.
So obviously, you say you love Force Choke. This is definitely Force Choke-ish. You literally give away 0 icons, assuming you get both your nudges out, like a standard TRM deck. And I'm assuming you're talking about monitoring what's your force, but I'm assuming that means you're using your farm / using your swamp all the time to search your deck constantly, every turn. So,
I mean, you stop at some point, but yes, initially, yes, every turn.
Okay. And obviously you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So why 7 senses? Why not 5? Why not 6? Why not 8? Like how did you determine that 7 was the right number?
I mean, I'm sure it's changed. I mean, I think the original number was predicated on what Brigham was playing back then, and I think the beast, the ROC, the responsibility command, much anger in him list. I'm trying to pull up what I had in that. I think the logic was match their count. Yeah, I have in that list, I have 7 and 2 there as well. I think the logic was you're going to be out activating dark, which means your hand size will be bigger than dark, which means as long as, and this is like flawed logic or whatever, but as long as you have the same number of senses and alters, because you're activating more and can draw more, you should have more in your hand. Not perfect logic, but I don't think there's anything magic about 7. I'm sure 6 is probably just as fine. 8 probably just as fine. I would definitely not go down to like 5. That seems bad. Alters, I think you need to. Not only does it cancel sense, but like cancels scum, cancels the responsibility of command. You need to have some diversity to win that war, especially if Grimtosh or Monarch is the card that's the catalyst for it. Yeah, I mean, this deck just loves to draw to 20 cards, 25 cards. So Monarch and Grimtosh are key.
Okay. I mean, how does it handle like other control decks? Because I notice like some Bring Before Me decks. You're right. The Bring Before Me tends to get a lot of senses and or alters. Right.
Mhm.
They will go ahead.
No, I will ask a
Yeah.
question.
Yeah. So and like they'll put the Emperor to the docking bay, and then they'll put like Vader to docking bay later. And Bring Before Me will also try to drop a very large hand. And so if you have like Emperor to docking bay, if you have Vader docking bay, and you haven't deployed a Luke or a Obi-Wan, then they can monarch you, and you have no one to kind of sense with, right? So how do you
So
kind
that's
of
the
like,
thing. But
yeah,
I definitely, so I use my ideal play is to put EPP OB at the swamp or
okay,
Luke at the swamp. Don't make it a battleground.
okay,
Don't move the nudge away. But you can put your ability 6 character out, and then what you're waiting for is for them to put Vader elsewhere, and then you can make that a battleground and Luke can go. So I think Luke is probably who I tend to download my Luke out of my deck to that site, just so that I can play my own senses and alters. And obviously, like Mara is a threat, I guess. But I mean, how much of a threat is Mara? I mean, nobody plays Emperor's Power really. They have to pay +3 to battle you at the swamp, even if they do use her spy portion to get there. But yeah, once they put Vader out on the table, then Luke is relatively safe. You can move the nudge away; it becomes a battleground, and then you start draining for 2 instead of presumably are the lightsaber, so you could have been draining for 1 this whole time. But yeah, no, you definitely turn 1, do your thing. Turn 1, they deploy Emperor. Turn 2, you tend to draw. And then ideally on your 3rd turn is when you play Luke out of deck to the swamp, just to get a body on the board for sense. So it can be risky until you deploy that character, because they could monarch you and hit a bunch of senses or something, sure. But I mean, it's calculated risk, variance, standard, that's how these games go.
okay, all right, yeah, Bring Before Me. Obviously, this is a nudge deck, so obviously because here's a nudge deck, that means you're not using, heading for the medical fragate. Do you have any opinion versus kind of, the two versions of, TRM? Like there's a TRM like this, and there's a TRM kind of with the docking bays, right? You'll kind of use staging areas. Um,
Yeah, I think if I ever were to like come back to this format with Ernest, I think I would need to explore this, and based on the fact that all the better Premier to Death Star 2 players are running this with the 3 effects, that leads me to believe that that's probably the correct start, because you're just saving some card slots and reducing some variance by not being solely dependent on opening handing Twixes, right? You can still push out 3 or 4 icons reliably on turn 1. So while the starts might not be as explosive, I think it's a more metered approach, and I think it also gives you different lines for the deck. Again, my version, or whatever you want to call it, the one that's, exists in the tutorial decks in GEMP, is a blunt object. It does one thing: activate a ton, cancel a bunch of cards, try to beat you up. I mean, that is unrefined. It's fun. I mean, Star Wars battles are great. I love battling. But I think to win games of Star Wars, it's recognizing that interaction is not always the greatest way to do it. And so the throne room deck that can sort of amass a critical board state of activation and then take advantage of that with more expensive cards, like you said, the home one, back to tank is a card I've seen a lot of these decks, like rewarding you for having all those resources. I think that that's probably the more correct play. I'd be curious to see what happens with Brangus against the 3 effect start deck, because that's not a deck that the old throne room, the Nudj throne room, can beat. I mean, in the hands of Bastion, right? Like,
Yeah.
I don't consider playing Brangus against somebody who's not Bastion to be a true test of Brangus. But I mean, I can't beat Bastion when he's playing Brangus with that old throne room list. I'd be interested to watch a game played where it's the 3 effect and see how that goes.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I've seen an SWC player who also can do a pretty good, Brangus. Is it better than Bastion? I don't know, but he's been skilled. But I have seen, like, I think Joe Horby's, like, ran like a nudge deck, and I think he lost because he did not have a grabber, right? I think the issue with this deck, of course, is you could run grabbers here, but push on us, you're less likely to, obviously. So your goal here is just to get an ability 6 person here, be able to sense. You have no 6s in the deck except, I guess, a couple of loops here. So your chances of being able to stop things, but the issue is, well, yeah, you can't sense him because what? Yeah, he would have oppressive enforcement. Like he
But
will
it's
get the
not,
stuff
yeah, I mean,
against you.
that's the thing. Like, Brangus has retrieval,
Right.
front room does no damage. If Brangus never gives you something to beat up, you literally, just on that fundamental level of the game, you can never outpace their retrieval. The throne room deck is incapable of doing sufficient damage to just. Brangus doesn't even have to do any damage, and throne room loses the game on damage because it's just that pathetic. So because now you're looking at a game, and again, I haven't played it in real life, but if you look at the game and there was infinite time, right? Like, Brangus is an infinite deck between retrieval and tracking with Janus and all the tricks that it has. Like, over a long enough period of time, the Brangus deck will just make the light side player lose all the cards. If not through Sabak, then through first strike. They're just going to trample. And like, even if you do cancel a thing with a sense, they can always retrieve it off of their SFS and their squadrons. Or they can get it back instantly with the docking bay exchange. I mean, there's just too many things. Brangus is happy doing nothing. And Brangus will draw up to 30 cards, and they don't care. Like, the deck is a whole bunch of one-offs except for 2 docking bays and a couple projection put all sections on alert, right? So they will let you Grimtosh them. They'll just grab it and they'll just draw up to 30 again, and they get to play their game of solitaire. And this throne room deck just doesn't have the damage output to put any pressure on them. So, I mean, that's why I'm curious to know if the other version of throne room, it has much different card slots, right? I have what, 8 Twixes and 7 senses. That's a lot of dead cards against Brangus, because yeah, I can sense something one time, but then they can just get it back and do it again, right? Like, circle your Obi, trample your Luke, because they trample over ability. They don't care that he's defense value 7. They put back that mournful roar with Janus, or operational as planned. Like, Brangus has the tools to win any game, provided they have the time to set it up. And throne room gives them ample time, because Brangus isn't trying to control the board the way a traditional deck does, like ROPS or anything else, really. Brangus doesn't care to be in a battleground. Brangus just wants to play Go Fish. It's a great deck. It's amazing. It's fun to play, Yeah, so there you go. So this deck has pressure, right? It offers AFA, which is pressure that a standard Nudj version doesn't offer, and the Coruscant system is a big deal. I would be curious to know. Oh, I see. Interesting. I guess the logic for Coruscant over Kessel is that typically, if Dark is playing systems, they're going to be lower parsec. Okay. I think it works with Blount against ISB. I
It works
guess,
with, yeah, it works with Blount against ISP, and it can be harder to do. But I mean, if you can get a home one lock. I mean, you could do a home one, and you can do a lock. And so some games you can lock them out of like playing. And so against ROPS, this can be good. Now the disadvantage, of course, is some ROPS do the Coruscant, the dark side version. So you have to be careful because Kessel, fewer dark side decks will run the Kessel. But if you're talking about like shutting someone down, it can be good. But yeah, obviously this deck
like, a part of
runs.
me wonders why not, why is the risk of that, like you said, being a Dark Side Coruscant is not a zero card, but I mean, like Kifix almost seems better to me, because it's still low parsec. Granted, Draina 2 versus Draina 3, but I don't know. I mean, I kind of feel like Resistance should be in everyone's decks anyway because of AFA. So like, don't know.
Yeah, I think Resistance and Brightness' deck. I'll have to check Bastion's list, and we can look at it in a second. But yeah,
Well, I'm not specifically speaking about Brangus, because I don't think it makes a difference if you're playing Coruscant or if you're playing Kessel or if you're playing Kifix against Brangus. I'm just thinking about the field in general, which makes sense. And like the argument for Coruscant is, oh, against ISB. Um, but
the argument is that if you can get this off of against ROPS, and ROPS doesn't have the counter, or they play Coruscant, then you counter them. All their deploy two guys, right? Like Arnett, and all their guys. Actually, sorry, yeah, all their guys are deploy +2. I don't care if you're Emperor or
yeah,
whatever, right? So their game plan is significantly impacted.
I don't know. I mean, I have no problems going up and fighting. I mean, with the deploy -2 to the system, like,
No, it's deploy, like all Imperials and Imperial starships are deploy +2.
I
Period.
understand that, but
Yeah.
like you can drop a ship and then put on it like all the troopers, and like you can be drawing 3 Battle Destiny and subtracting 1 from theirs. Like, I don't, I don't, I don't see why that couldn't be attacked by a ROPS deck. That's my point. Although I'm thinking in terms of trooper ROPS, I can see how that would be better against the ATST ROP deck, sure. But like trooper ROPS, they'll fight the home one. I mean, like I said, Emperor Shuttle, so that's 1 battle destiny. Regular ability 4, 2 battle destiny. If you pair the troopers, that's 3 battle destiny. If you have Bosk, that's 4 battle destiny. And then obviously Barrack can subtract. So I mean, you can be like, I have definitely played the ROPS against an iteration of EVO that was a mainsy one with AFAs similar to this, and like you can kill their home one. Like, it's not, no, he doesn't add. It's the Barrack that subtracts, yeah. But the two, the Enfield and the Torrent, he only has that aside.
Yeah, you're right. Okay. All right. All right.
But anyway, I'm that's regardless. Point is, you have a drain system. We don't have to debate here and now which is the best if it's Coruscant. What are the pros and cons of Coruscant versus Kifix versus Kessel?
Yeah,
I would
I need to bring up a point. Yes, the Trooper ROPS, it tends to be tech more for more battle destiny, and it'll help you. And I agree with you there. So I think this can help you. I mean, you could even revolution your own Coruscant, and then you do doubling, whereas your starship's pilots deploy -2, and the dark side text goes off as well and deploy. I think at its core, it's just it's a place you can force drain for 3. If you have launch and assault, you can force drain for 4, and you can satisfy battle plan, battle order, because this deck, unlike many other decks, it has a battleground site, it has a battleground system, and for the most part, it can defend, right? And so even though GIMP doesn't have frozen assets, it uses Beggar,
fire.
so
Yeah.
it has the ability to kind of do the draw your fire combo because you have no force kind of thing.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I think this is probably the better list. I think it's better against the field. But again, it comes down to the fact that, in the actual October month of 2000, we had 2 to 3 months to iterate. This is 2 decades of iteration. So I definitely think that this is probably the right direction for sure. Although I do curiously wonder if the Hoth War Room is the appropriate Twix. Only because by playing more War Rooms, you're giving them easier access to ROC, Much Anger in Him, and that whole combo. Like, you're not going to play the home one War Room, obviously, because that helps get your home one out faster.
Yeah.
But like, if you were playing against the Brigham deck, like, why wouldn't you want to make them find their War Room? Why give them easy access to a War Room? I get that it's related to your
I guess the thing you could say is, I guess if you're, not a ton of people play Responsibility Command anymore. People could play it. I saw Dark Deal 44 playing it. People can play Responsibility Command. You can play with Hunt Down. You can play with Bring Before Me. I think the main reason for this is that it's a force drain -1, right? So even if they put a Mara Jade or a Spy or whatever, they can avoid Honor the Jedi. Your force loss here is not great. Whereas if you do that classic Yavin 4 Ruins, right? You talked about, if they put a Mara here, you have a big ouch.
Yep.
That's what I would say. That's all. And even if they did play Responsible Command, well, you are playing the docking bay. So you are playing the docking bay in this version, which means that even if they, bug you and they put it like on Akbar, they can escape. Go ahead.
Yeah, you can always run away to your home one docking bay, and then it becomes very challenging for them to keep presence in front of you. I know that there's ways to circumvent it. I'd have to look, and I don't even remember which other Twixes are available back then. It may just be the lesser of evils to go with, and it's also interior, right? If ISB is a deck, you certainly don't want to play an exterior site where they can get, a Blizzard 2 or something like that with an agent in it.
Yeah.
Vehicles are bad.
Yeah. True. There's another Yavin. This is about it. He's doing most of them. He doesn't have Rendezvous Point because Rendezvous Point would conflict with Home One.
I would absolutely want to play Chief Chirpa's Hut over the Yavin 4 War Room, because they're both equally crappy. They're both interior, but one is a War Room, one is not a War Room. So I would not be playing that one War Room. The Hoth one I'd have to think about, because it's convenient that it's related to a docking bay. Like, if you go into Yavin, if they've invaded your Yavin sites and you have to go in, if you can't turn on honor for some reason, you actually have to kill them there, like, your guy is stuck on Yavin. Whereas arguably, if you go and kill something at Hoth, at least you can get to a docking bay, which then gets you back to a battleground. But I would definitely cut the Yavin War Room for Chief Chirpa's Hut. I can't see a significant.
Well, Bring Them Before Me, right? Indoor docking bay is a staple there. So, if
you're saying that would give them an opening to go in there?
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. Now, granted, Bring Them Before Me, they're still trying to satisfy 3 battlegrounds usually, but to me, it's an opening. If I could put a Flunky there or put a Mara there, maybe, I might.
Yeah, but if they have Mara, they can go Mara anyway. Like, I don't know. There's pros and cons to each. I think I'd rather give them an opening that they might. I would actually, that would be hilarious. Have them move over and then you like Revo the Chief Chirpa's Hut or something like that. I don't know. There's little nuance like that I can't. I'm just giving you my off the cuff thoughts. Like I said, I'm not super attuned to the meta, but I can absolutely see where this one has huge advantages over the old one. I hate not playing Sense, but
that is a disadvantage.
It also depends upon how prevalent Hunt Down is, and obviously the Gemp meta is a little bit warped. I know that there's some people that 100% of the time always play Hunt Down. And if you know that if you're playing in one of these events, you're inevitably going to run into Hunt Down, that could certainly be a factor in why you don't want to play a deck with 7 senses and 2 altars. It just makes it less attractive.
Yeah, I
Right.
mean, yeah, I think, I mean, I think like if you're facing Bring Before Me, this deck would have potentially some issues because, okay, yes, it has do or do not here, but you're right. They can sense, they can alter, they can take care of yourself. So being Bring Before Me control deck, I'd have to see how it goes. Against ROPS, I think it's competitive, against Brightness. I think it's competitive. At least it has a couple grabbers. Ideally three would be better, but you know, have to see.
Yep. No, there's a lot. I mean, when you take out, I mean, it's still a ton of locations, right? It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 versus 11. So whatever, you saved a card slot on locations. Um, Although you could argue the staging areas offsets that. Um, so about the same in terms of resources, but by taking out 7 cents and 2 altar, right? 2 altars get replaced by 2 pushes. I mean, you're gaining 7 card slots. That's a lot of diversity. That's a lot more tricks that the deck can do. It's not just, oh, I'm going to cancel whatever you have. So yeah, I like the look of that deck. I hadn't seen this one, but it looks
Yeah,
pretty solid.
yeah, that's what Brad Kipple won with last year. So yeah, no, I like the deck too. Um, all right, well, cool. I think I had a couple of endpoints here. I guess I should ask you, is there anything else you want to share with folks that want to play kind of a TRM deck similar to yours? Anything else you want to share with them before we move on?
Um, no, I mean it's pretty simple, but the complexity is there. As always, play the games. If you start losing, don't concede because you can make a game go very, very, very long. It's hard for dark decks to do a lot of damage to you, so you have a lot more time than you realize. Even if you've taken some force loss, you can always come back. So play games out all the way. Don't concede. Play them out. That's my advice. Universally good.
Awesome. So we were talking a little bit about kind of results, right? A little bit. So I have here, right, old Decipher, how you were doing. So on day two, I don't have day one, day two of the game, and you're right, your last game was against Feldman. You have really good memory. I'm amazed here. So you did play Falky there, so that's where you saw what he was playing. You said like he was playing a ROPS Troopers where you got inspired by, correct?
Yep.
Okay. And I do have Dr. Torch's deck. Any other memories about any of these people? Any like Daniel Amor or Zach, or does any of these call memories or just kind of forgotten and lost?
No, I mean I remember it. I mean Stephen Turner is a doctor from VA. I mean I can tell you which table we were sitting at. He outsacked me. He drew all his Twixes. Against Martin Falk, I lost against the Troopers. Uh, Dan Amore, he's Heisenberg. He's still around today. I don't remember that game at all. Zach Senderson, he's a cool guy. I've definitely hung out with him in recent years. He's still around a bit. I mean, when you win by that much, like to me, that means the game wasn't close. So I can't. I don't remember what he was playing.
Okay.
Martin Log, I think Martin was also playing the Troopers, but I had learned from my first game against Martin Falk. But oh no, I was dark. I don't know. I don't know what that was.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't remember any of the wins. Um, I know who all these people are. I know
Okay.
exactly what they look like. Martin Schumacher, man, I haven't seen him since like he was host when we went over for the World Cup in Essen, and then yeah, Paul Todd Feldman. Uh, Not a good game against him. It was
Okay.
it was a very late day. Everyone was tired, and there was definitely some gamesmanship. So I'm not as big as fan.
Okay.
Yep.
Do you remember why you lost the game? You were just tired, or you couldn't track, or like?
Well, I mean, Kyle Kraft and I were both playing the same light deck. Paul was playing his bad Brangus version, and Kyle beat him by like 20 or something. So, like, I mean, the game was won, but we were just playing slowly because it was a long day and it wasn't really that competitive of a game.
Okay.
And anyway, he had Zuckus out. I had Super Falcon assembled, and then like I had Malos originally as a pilot, and Leia joined the party, drew Destiny, whatever. I had to forfeit, and then of course, he was like, "Oh, you didn't declare that you moved Leia into the pilot slot," and I'm like, "Judge, I did," and he's like, "No, you didn't." Judge is like, "Well, I didn't see it because obviously the judge wasn't there." So we played on and eventually moved Leia into the slot or whatever. But like at some point, like he did a gravity shadow and I sensed it, and I failed the sense because I drew like a Jedi Luke or something. And so the sense failed, and he put the gravity shadow, into his used pile instead of lost pile. So when time was called, it was literally an 18 to 19 scenario. Um, but the whole game, he was. I'm not his biggest fan, so he knows this. He doesn't like me either. Um, but Yep,
Wasn't
that
aware.
was sort of the cutthroat days of Decipher where, everyone tried to get away with what they were getting away with type of thing. So there was a lot more cheating and a lot more of that kind of, oh, you didn't make me do it type thing. Therefore, I'm not going to do it, like the losing a Visage or whatever. But yep, that was very frustrating.
Imagine. All right, but you did make the cut. You didn't make the
No,
cut to day three, which was
I
kind
did
of
not.
cool. So, Kyle
No,
Craft,
I
he was
didn't.
here, and yeah, Clint Hayes, and
Yeah,
oh,
I
sorry,
didn't make
you
the
didn't
cut
make the
for that
cut.
one.
I'm sorry,
Yeah,
you
that's
didn't
what
make
I'm
the cut.
saying. Like that would have
No,
been the difference.
I'm sorry. Okay. Yeah, so yeah, they cut to top 12. So what would this made you? So what you were okay, there's one,
I think I
two,
finished like 16th or something. I don't know. Maybe lower than
8,
that.
9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
So, but I mean, that's the beauty of losing. Losing is great because it's motivating, right? If you're not winning, you're losing. So every time you lose, it's an opportunity to get better. And you know, there was a lot of hard lessons along the way as a kid, because Decipher just sort of you have to police yourself. Um, Sort of growing up the hard way type of thing. Back in my day, we walked to school in the snow uphill both ways type thing. Like you really had to be an advocate for yourself, and you had to watch your opponents like a hawk. And I mean, even to this day, I mean, I can listen to people activate, and know if they're doing it correctly or whatever. The
Mhm.
skills that you had to learn to catch people who were cheating was insane back then. I mean, they've paid dividends. I've played so many other games over the years, and watching dumb sleight of hand stuff or incorrect plays, like, I mean, it was a cruel environment to learn how to play cards in. But I mean, if you want to succeed, you had to get very good at catching that stuff. So it's a different feel nowadays. Nowadays people are very courteous. Um, People are very, because like, what are we playing for, right? We're playing for fun. It's a dead game. I mean, I hate that phrase,
Yeah.
but I don't feel like the community is just so great. I don't, dead game or not, it doesn't matter. Everybody really appreciates the game. Everyone really appreciates each other. Um, People are just so good about like making the board state right and saying, "Oh yeah, you can take that back." I don't want to beat you on a technicality. I want to play the game out the way it's supposed to be played. So that's like, it's really is just a testament to like how wonderful the people that are still around are these days. But
Like that. Okay, um okay, so obviously you make it through day two. I think there were like some team events day three. Did you play anything else other than this main match, or what else went with you here?
apparently, I played in a Japanese seal deck. I don't have. I mean, I don't have any recollection of that.
Okay.
I don't usually do the fun Fred stuff. I'm pretty hyper focused on the competition itself. But I mean, it was that so many of the people that I met at that tournament are still around. But yeah.
All right. So I think after this tournament, there was like a new age thing you posted here. So I thought it was interesting because in 2009 you had TRM again, but you posted this new age where you actually put home one here, right? So, but I never saw you actually play with this. Help me understand
Never
this
played
one.
it. Hated it. Did
You
not
hated
like
it.
it.
Why'd you
Yep.
publish it then? Why'd you make this whole article about it? I don't get it.
I don't know. I don't. I mean, I think I may have said something in that strategy section like everyone else is doing it. I don't know.
Okay.
My take on the. I mean, I'm not the one who designed this deck. I don't know why I posted what I posted on there. I don't.
It says Hayes.
What
It says your
you're asking
name.
me decisions about what let's see in 2000, yeah, so why would the 17-year-old Hayes do this? I don't know.
Yeah.
um
According to this, it's from you.
yeah,
You know.
I know it's from me, but I can't tell you why I thought I should post it or why I thought it was good.
I'd say it was.
um
I know you're like arguing with people here. It's fine. It's all good. I'm just curious. But okay, you don't like it. All right, that's fine. Obviously you didn't play it. I never saw you play in any of these tournaments, so obviously it wasn't good enough. There's no Falcon here, so okay. All right. Okay.
yeah, I mean, I was not really a deck builder. I think the pile was probably the only, but even that's just a rip off of Throne Room. I was not innovative. The pile was the deck that was in Tatooine that did the "Don't Do That Again" start
Mm-hmm.
and the scramble transmission for 3PO. I mean,
Okay.
but,
Okay. Yeah, I'd have to look up that deck. I don't know about that deck. Don't do that again. Yeah. Okay, yeah, not light side. Okay, don't do that again here. Scramble transmission. Yeah, I think I saw a SWC player doing something like this. Yeah. Okay. All right, cool. Great. So I guess the only thing we didn't really cover here is kind of end of the Decipher era. I didn't get your feelings there. So you knew it was ending. They've been a bunch of like, how did it feel? End of 2021, that kind of thing.
um, I mean, it was a roller coaster. I think I was like many people, upset and preemptively quit, and then kind of just realized, well, just ride it out. So I did. The having the PC come up and keep things going was really tremendous. I wasn't involved in any of that. I was, at college or whatever. So it was on the other side of the world as far as I was concerned, right? A lot of this stuff sort of originated, with Scott in the Coruscant region, that Northeast corridor again, but I was not involved. I don't really, I think I was just happy that we could still play the game. I didn't feel one way or the other about the virtual cards. I just, thought it was I certainly didn't think it was going to last 25 years, right? That's mind boggling. Nobody did, right? Everyone's like, oh, this is just a stopgap band-aid measure. We can keep playing our events. We can interject some new cards. Like, no one could have predicted that we'd end up where we are today. So, I mean, it was fine. Like I said, I just sort of being off of college, doing all that involved, some schoolwork, mostly partying and whatnot. I just, there was other priorities for me. So I sort of lost some interest in the game. I remember I went to that Dragon Con Worlds that was held at Dragon Con. And like I did poorly, like I did 5-3 or something. Like I did not as well as I wanted to. I realized that I wasn't current on the meta. I either went 4-4 or 5-3. I don't know, but I just, I'm a competitive person. If I don't feel like in control and like have a good read on things, then, going in and losing for me is unfun. I don't play this game to lose. So it was pretty easy for me with everything going else in life and not feeling very connected to the game to just walk away from it. I mean, I didn't sell all my cards or anything like that. I will never sell all my cards. Like my cards are irreplaceable, right? It's the memories, all the signatures on all the cards, all that stuff. Like I'm never gonna quit. Whatever comes moving forward, I'm along for the ride as always. But again, it's more about the community than anything right now. So um, yeah, I mean, Decipher losing the license sucked. What WotC did was terrible. What Scott and the advocates and everyone did was fantastic, and it's just so amazing that those first few steps led to this long journey. I'm certainly very appreciative of Scott, the advocates, everybody over the years that has volunteered. It is really remarkable when you think about how many volunteers there are. I look at other games that try to do their continuation committees or whatever they call them, and it's hard, it's challenging. I Some of my buddies are trying to do like L5R stuff, and I ask them, I'm like, well, who does this? Who does that? Who does this? And they're like, oh, it's like three of us, man. And I'm like, hey, look at this org chart. Like, look what the PC has. We're 60 plus volunteers that all make this thing work. I mean, I don't know if you do any official capacity volunteering, but I mean, you're supporting the game by putting together these series. It's like insane to me. Just how lucky we are that this exists. So
I completely agree with you. No, I've enjoyed this game for a long time. I would not have expected this many years. And no, the stories are great, and I am grateful to people who keep this game alive. So, no, thank you for agreeing to this interview. I think people will really enjoy it, and I think that's a great note to end. So, thank you again, Hayes, and best of luck. And I guess I'll see you around.
awesome. Thank you.
All right, take
I
care.
really hope you're going to edit this down. kind of blew your hour away.
No, it's good. No, hey, YouTube's are great. People can watch as much or as little they want to, so it'll be fine. They can, whatever portions. All right, sir. I'm gonna pause now. Take care. Bye bye.
All right, take care. Bye bye.